Coming to you live from an abandoned storage locker somewhere in Mesa, Arizona. You're tuned into the Important Nonsense Podcast with Steve Bonham.
Attention, Alan Hearn's mom. His knee is better. You can stop worrying.
And Neil Smith.
Even with the concussion, as long as he's cleared, probably don't have a better option.
Ooh, boom shakalaka.
Hello. Welcome in. Important Nonsense Podcast. Steve Bonham and Neil Smith as usual. But because of the holiday, we are joined by the Friday Night Insights crew, Jack, Jordan, and Jason. How you guys doing this evening?
Well, hello. It is great to be here with you. I am in the holiday spirit, and I am ready to answer fantasy football questions.
So you're drunk?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Holiday spirits.
That's what
Not yet.
Yeah, okay.
Also, for all of those in the audience, I would like everyone to know that if you still make your Bloody Marys or Caesars with vodka, you're wrong. Grow up, do it with bourbon or gin like an adult.
Wow.
Grow up, he says. Interesting.
A lot of veteran drinkers just got very offended and shut.
See, I don't know
we
here
lost half
because
our audience.
Jag, I feel like is
night.
just going full hardcore into the holiday spirit here because it was a terrible week in fantasy for pretty much everyone. The Lions have pretty much jeopardized their shot at the number one pick.
Hey, as long as they're top two, they can either get Thibodeau or they can get Hutchinson, and we're happy still.
Well, we'll see what happens. We got a couple of weeks here to go, and they seem intent on going on a win streak to finish this season. Get out of the top 5 real quick. But we have a lot happening. There's a lot of hopefully not COVID news on this list.
No.
To deal with.
No, that's all we're doing today. People didn't get that memo.
100%.
We're just doing the COVID roundup for an hour.
Yep.
That's why we're here.
What's sad is
not ideal. I mean, football just ended yesterday, so I'm still very confused about what day it is.
Yes, no clue what's going on right now.
And we're here 2 days early. It's just very confusing. I don't really know why I'm here.
You're all completely thrown off. So let's do the reverse of what you normally do. Instead of looking back at Thursday night football, we're going to look ahead to Thursday night football. How does that throw you through a loop for a little bit?
I can't predict a score or tell you what I'm complaining about this week.
Yeah, predict the score. What are you going to be most angry about come Friday when you're normally recording?
Probably Wilson not getting a touchdown and then getting robbed by Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel leading the team in carries. All right.
I know I'm going to be mad at playing AJ Brown and him going 4 for 49 with no touchdowns. That's going to be what I'd be angry about.
you think he's going to get that far?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was tepid.
That feels optimistic.
Yeah, I know.
1 for 12 and then sat down in the second quarter for no apparent reason.
You know what? I'm gonna get on your level now. I'm usually a pessimistic person, but you've brought me down to this. Now I'm gonna believe that now, and I'm still gonna play him. I know it's coming, and I'm still gonna play him.
Well, that's fantasy football.
Yeah,
do we have to do that PSA like we do every year in the playoffs? You dance with who brung you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that applies to.
That's not a thing. We don't do that anymore because this year's been weird.
Oh yeah.
That's true. You go back and you think about it.
Think about everybody that you drafted in the first round and how useful they've been.
Yeah, all my Saquon Barkley stock. We're at the point where it is.
Yeah, but that's not who brung you. I mean, if you're in the playoff, that's not who brung you. If you were banking on Saquon, you're not worried about the playoffs this week.
But it is a legitimate conversation between Ronald Jones and most running backs at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the world we live in.
Hey, there were people before week 1 that thought that was the case. So,
yeah, those people were idiots
and
until
they were
week
wrong.
16 is their time to shine. Here they come. Their 4-10 team is
somewhere.
Ready
John Chansey is shaking his fist at you, Jordan.
All right, well, 49ers Titans, that's the game tomorrow night. 49ers have Elijah Mitchell ruled out again. At this point, we're wondering, can he be called a league winner even though he's missed the first 2 rounds of the playoffs? Jack,
I don't think
that's
so.
Your note, so.
I don't think so. when I think of a league winner, my definition is the player that carries you through the playoffs. So far, Travis Kelce, he could be a league winner. Mark Andrews, possible league winner. Cooper
George
Kupp.
Kittle.
Yeah,
Kittle coming in just in time finally.
Those are the kinds of players, the players that performed this past week. Was Elijah Mitchell a waiver wire hero?
Yeah.
Was he an all-star in terms of fantasy football? Does he deserve an award? All of those answers are yes. But he is not a league winner because he's not winning you your league.
I mean, that's fair. He probably got you there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but,
absolutely. Regular season star.
At this point, there's no way he's the reason you would win because he'd have to play in order for that to be the case.
I go back to Todd Gurley on his prolific fantasy season. If you didn't have Todd Gurley, you needed Dion Lewis because that year with the Patriots, Dion Lewis, or no, was it Dion Lewis? Was that his name? The running back?
Yeah, Dion Lewis.
Dion Lewis was a running back for
the
Patriots.
Running back.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I'm second guessing myself. It's been
he's the guy from the Derrick Henry picture. That Matt LaFleur
See, you're also thrown
out.
off by
that guy.
But if you didn't have Todd Gurley, you needed Dion Lewis. Otherwise, you weren't going to win. Those two were league winners because if you got to the playoffs, you won your league thanks to them.
I mean, when I think of league winners, I think of Neil knows this, how I'm still haunted to this day. In our long time dynasty league that we play in, I had back-to-back championships and I was going for number 3 and I was the number 1 seed and I got ousted in the first round because Brian Westbrook got hurt and the guy that was the 8 seed picked up Bryce Brown. And he put up like 40 points in back-to-back weeks and eliminated me.
And then disappeared,
in the first
never
round
to be
of
heard
playoffs,
from
and
again.
then was never heard from again.
Yep.
So that's the type of guy I think of when I think of league winners. We talked about last year, like David Montgomery, who was doing literally nothing the first 10 weeks of the season.
Jonathan Taylor, same thing.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden just gets red hot in the playoffs and on the back end. So. Yeah, in terms of being an actual like league winner, I would say Elijah Mitchell at this point does not qualify for that.
Elijah Mitchell is a lot like James Robinson from last year. It's like finding $20 on the ground. You pick it up and you put it in your pocket. Mm-hmm. And he was the MVP for a lot of us last year. James Robinson was because of what he was able to do relative to price point.
Yes,
Elijah Mitchell's probably not quite there. And it's going to be difficult for anybody to not name Cooper Kupp realistically to win the MVP this year based on what you're getting, which is insane considering the price tag. But that's a conversation for 2 weeks from now. Well, hold on. We got a question coming in live from the audience.
Ryan Alverson on YouTube would like to know Dallas Goedert or Pro Bowler Kyle Pitts.
I was going to say, is this for the Pro Bowl? Our opinions on that, or is this for like fantasy wise? Because we just went on a massive tangent about this.
Well, if we're going to talk about the Pro Bowl, we have to start with the snub of DeAndre Swift. So I think we're going to avoid that for now.
We don't have 2 hours.
Right.
But Jack, didn't you guys have didn't the Lions have another player they could have put in instead?
What, Craig Reynolds?
No, I mean, like, did they not have another Lions player that went to the Pro Bowl?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
0.
Well, TJ Hawkinson might have, but he was hurt, and then
TJ Hawkinson wasn't that good. Let's be real.
Was disappointing.
I'm trying to give him a bone, okay?
Answer though for Ryan Alverson, Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, Dallas Goedert for me as well.
Yeah, especially after what we saw yesterday. I agree.
And so that's one of the things I wanted to touch on this show. Dallas Goedert for me. He is now in that tier that Mark Andrews was this season, that Kyle Pitts was in this season, where we don't know that he's elite, but he could be. Dallas Goedert in 2022 could be one of those difference-making tight ends where it's if you didn't get Kelce, Kittle, Andrews, I'm not even counting Darren Waller at this point because he hurt you down the stretch with his injuries and middling production. So it's the top three of Andrews, Kittle, and Kelsey, and then Waller and Goedert in the next tier for me.
So Goddard was essentially there this year, like early on in the offseason. He was kind of in that mix, and because everyone thought that Zach Ertz was going to be traded to Buffalo, that never happened, and then his value started to decrease. I got him at like great spots.
Well, that's what I was going to say too. Is we had talked about this in the preseason. I was remembering from our own rankings that we had Dallas Goedert at 6, and just looking back now at ADP, his actual ADP was tight end 10, which was too low. But right now he's tight end 6. Like he's exactly where we thought he would be this season. Do I think that's going to move up? Like the only discussion at tight end ever is it somebody from outside the big 3 or 4 that moves into it, like Hawkinson did for last offseason, like 2 years ago when Mark Andrews moved into that conversation. Is there somebody that was outside of that conversation this year that moves into that next year? And outside of people's love for Kyle Pitts, I don't know if there is anybody. I think it's still status quo. I think it's still the same people that we were talking about before.
To answer the man's question, by the way, as we go round the horn here, it's Goddard this week over Pitts. I think we've pretty much got that unanimous. And then, Jack, you and I will argue all offseason about some of what you were just talking about there when we have plenty of time to lay out for it. But my whole stance on this, I've been on this show several times talking about this. No tight end is worth drafting early. Moving forward, period. End of story. Moving on. We will not be drafting tight end early at all. I don't care if it's Travis Kelce. The days of spending a top 3 pick on any of that, not interested. Let somebody else deal with the headache. There's no ROI on it. When you're just as likely to get, if all I need is for some fat guy to fall into the end zone, I can get Hunter Henry in the 12th round.
Hey, Hunter Henry is not fat.
I can get Pat Fryermuth at roughly the same position. Like, why am I investing? Why am I investing in a Cadillac when I only need a Camry?
It's baby fat from Pat Fryermuth, and Hunter Henry is a very in shape person, sir.
I'm sure he is.
Sure.
The pads aren't helping him visually.
Well, I'm just looking at fantasy points here. So for Andrews right now, 243.2 for tight end 1. So that would make him wide receiver 5 or running back 4 or QB 13. So that's the only thing I can say, that when you're looking at it on that case, I can kind of see it, but you have to make sure that person is going to be healthy, and you can't.
Yeah, so are you going to tell me you're going to draft Mark Andrews in the first round next year?
No, but I'm definitely going to take Kittle in probably the 3rd.
Yeah, good luck getting George Kittle in the 3rd round.
Good luck with that. I wish you
luck. And
if you can find leagues where that's happening, invite me.
Yeah.
Well,
and
it's
for anyone in the audience that would like those kinds of questions answered, that Jason doesn't give his terrible opinion on, hit us up in the comments. You can ask us your start sits, your waiver wire, your dynasty. Hit us up with your questions.
Well, really though, like Andrews, I think is kind of a bad example because he was in the same neighborhood as like Hawkinson. He was like the 5th tight end off the board. You could have waited to get Mark Andrews, and right now you'd be cashing for the tight end 1. So I think that just further proves you don't pay up to get a tight end. You're fine getting one later on rather than paying a 1st or 2nd or 3rd round pick for it.
Wait and you hope you cash.
Yeah.
Unless the wheel of wow forces you to, and make sure all off season long you tune into Jack Knows Best, because we're going to be jam packed with content. So check out the patreon.com below, because that's how you'll see all of that lovely content.
This guy's a trained professional.
Yeah.
Look at him go.
He's getting all his plugs in now.
I am the definition of a
I'm going to leave the
channel.
rest of the notes on here for you guys that wrote them, because you have a better hold on them than I do. And it's really messing with my brain too, that I kind of All right, you went with orange.
You
Well,
just
we've
gotta
gone on
do
like
it.
5 tangents, so now I've lost track of where.
We're up to green. So who's green?
Yeah,
Jordan.
That's me. So I was asking.
Back to Niners Titans for
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
keeping track.
Sorry for breaking everyone in the audience's neck here with what's going on.
This
We're
is
gonna
what
go
we do
back.
on Friday nights. We go all over the
Whiplash.
place.
That's right.
And
Mhm.
this is just how we roll now. But yeah, I was asking if it's reasonable to expect another solid outing by Jeff Wilson Jr. with no Mitchell. Titans are a tough run defense, and if you're using one of your spots on JWJ on a Thursday and it doesn't go well, you might screw yourself for the second round of the playoffs. So I'm just asking you guys, like, is that something that you would want to do? Like, if sometimes you don't have a choice, but
I could tell you.
I mean, this is one of those situations where basically the answer to all of these questions we have tonight that are start sit are just, it depends on how desperate you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is Jeff Wilson playable? Sure. If the rest of your team is stacked enough that playing Jeff Wilson to this point got you to the second round of the playoffs, you might as well just keep rolling. I mean, unless you've got something better or somebody's been hurt, like if he was your DeAndre Swift fill-in, you're just hoping Swift comes back. That's basically all it is.
If he's available somehow after, because he hasn't done anything up before last week, so he might have been available when waivers ran earlier this week. He would be somebody that I would target potentially as like an Eckler replacement, but I'm looking at like where, I mean, he's in like the mid 20s for me at running back, largely because that's just a function of where running back is at this point. It's kind of a horrible tragedy right now. So what that means is you're kind of talking about he's not even really an RB2. He's kind of a flex running back that there are worse choices. But if I could get, like, for example, we could do this way. Would you rather play Donta Foreman or Jeff Wilson? Same game.
Foreman.
Me too.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
Foreman here too. So
Ronald Jones or Jeff Wilson?
Jones.
Oh,
Jones.
yeah, Ronald Jones.
yeah.
And before anyone asks, and for those of us, you out there, hit us up with your questions. Le'Veon Bell does not matter. He doesn't. The juice is gone. The career is over.
Mm-hmm.
He was ready to retire, and for good reason. Because
The guy that lost out to Devontae Freeman. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
and
time.
Pretty sure,
Latavius
yeah.
It's
Murray
time.
Yeah.
and Tyson Williams, who doesn't get any playing time.
Right.
Yeah, it's time to retire. It's an insurance policy. He knows the scheme. That's it. That is literally it.
What's sad is that I would normally be like, we don't need that PSA. We're going to move on. We got a jam-packed show. I had to answer so many Le'Veon Bell questions at my job because his last name is Bell, and I had to answer this question like 15 times. So apparently there does need to be a PSA.
Well,
I'm glad you did.
Killer Bees are back. Brady, Ben, and Bell. Or sorry, Brady, Brown, and Bell.
There you go. Yeah.
They're
All
back.
over.
No, they're not. It's Ronald Jones. Keyshawn Vaughn is the 2. At some point, Gio Bernard will come back. Bell is irrelevant.
Well, except for he might be used in the passing game. That's the only thing that I can.
Cut his mic.
That's
Cut
the
his
only
mic.
thing.
Get him out of here. Get the hook.
Congrats on the 7 pass blocking snaps a game you're going to get, Le'Veon Bell.
The only reason I say that is because they only have Brown at this point. I don't trust Tyler Johnson. I don't trust Scotty Miller. I'm hoping that Antonio Brown's healthy enough to do anything, but if he's not, they don't trust Ronald Jones to catch the ball.
Jason, at what point do you think the Buccaneers are actually going to run the football in a meaningful way? That would matter.
I'm just saying as a pass catching option. That's
That's
the only
fair.
thing that I can see him being
I mean,
evaluated at.
Because he physically exists, I'll give you that.
Yes, because he
But,
physically exists.
Yeah, that was the most backhanded, dismissive thing that Steve is capable of doing and still maintaining objectivity.
Yeah.
I have one last thing about Le'Veon Bell before we move on, because we've talked way too much about him. And it's to Jack. Do you think he wears a better number with the Buccaneers than he did with the Ravens?
I think I saw him wearing a 6.
17. 6. Oh God. Okay.
Yes,
No,
That's bad.
6 is way better than 17.
Oh.
17.
No,
is
it's for me.
only for
It's 20.
receivers and
It's
QBs.
no. You can't have to 10s. You can't have single numbers as a running back. Doesn't look right.
Hey, no. James Conner and Chase Edmonds look
Yeah.
pretty great in single digits. James Conner, though, shouldn't be in the Pro Bowl. ahead of DeAndre Swift.
Oh, we're
Neither
going
should
back to
Alvin
Pro
Kamara,
Bowl.
Well, he's
neither
never
should
gonna let it
Dalvin
go.
Cook.
It's going
Jordan, you're
back
going to
to
have
the
this
sliding.
conversation with
Yep.
him for 3 years.
Mhm.
We're just going to sprinkle it in. We can go back to the regular conversation.
Good.
Fine, I'll do one more. Would you rather play Rashad Penny or Jeff Wilson?
Oh,
Kind of the same thing.
man.
Who's
Yeah.
Seattle?
You know what?
against
If
the
you have to
Bears.
make this decision in your
Probably
playoffs,
Rashad
good for
Penny.
you. If you've made it this far and you're stuck with that decision.
Steve says Rashad Penny. I'm Satan here. I'm giving you the hard choices.
No, because it's Thursday night football.
Yeah, it hurts, doesn't
Yeah.
it? I can hear Jack's brain ticking over right now. The smoke's about to start coming out.
No.
Jordan's just sad.
no,
He can't even make eye contact with us anymore. He's just
Titans.
I just depressed him.
I'm just thinking about the people that have to make that decision, and my heart goes out.
There's a number of people that are making
of
that
course.
exact choice right now. That's
Oh God, I hate it. But I'd probably go Jeff Wilson. I honestly would. I just don't trust Rashad Penny. He had one game.
No, I think that's where I've landed too.
Well, and I think Penny's actually dealing with an injury. Which,
Well, he left the game last week or.
Abdul.
It's always
yesterday.
dealing
I
with
guess
injuries.
he's
yesterday.
always it's Rashad Penny. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go Jeff Wilson as well, by the way, but it's largely because they're gonna activate Alex Collins for this game here. And if Alex Collins even
Yeah.
gets 7 carries, it's enough to make a difference. So that's what's it for me. I'm sorry, I've derailed that far longer than I should have. Let's
Here's what I'll say. In the 3 games since he came back from the injury, Rashad Penny's had 10 carries, 16 carries, 11 carries. He's getting the opportunities, whereas Jeff Wilson, you're really still just hoping he falls in the end zone. Like he had
That's
21 carries last week against Atlanta, but Tennessee is a much different animal.
much better defense. Running
And-
defense.
when you're on
No. They used to be. They have fallen off a cliff.
Well,
Just
they fell off a
because
cliff,
played-
but then they started climbing back up the cliff slightly.
just
Yeah,
because they played well against Big Ben and
That's
his
fair.
sorry butt.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that one. I'll give
But
you
Doesn't
they
mean
did a
they're
good
good.
job at limiting Najee Harris, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So
If
It
you
does
look
concern
at
me. I don't like the
advanced
matchup.
metrics, though. Najee Harris is an average at best running back.
Is
The
Jeff
O-line-
Wilson better than an average at best running back?
No.
Behind the 49ers offensive line? Yes.
That's not an advanced metric. That's the
Okay.
line.
No, okay. Yes. Sorry.
You can't say he's more efficient because his line is better. That's not how efficiency works.
No, sorry. I was pivoting back to fantasy football. Jeff
Okay.
Wilson in fantasy football over Rashad Penny.
Okay. It's close.
It is close. Very
Yes. It's unfortunate we even have to talk about it. But we will talk about whatever you want. So if you have any questions, hit us up in the comments.
All right. The next thing on the list is you want to know about Debo, Jack.
Yeah. Does he get running back eligibility? And
I mean,
where
he
does
should
go in
already have
22?
running back.
Yeah, he
eligibility.
should already have
Exactly.
it.
Yes.
But
I-
here
I
I am, the guy playing against Cordarrelle Patterson as a wide receiver because my fantasy league refuses to update players
That
mid-season.
happened to him like 5 times this year.
So,
It
I mean,
keeps happening.
who am I to say who should have what position eligibility?
As a credible fantasy football commentator, you absolutely have
You would think.
all of the things to say.
Where would he get
Does he
drafted? I mean, that's
Yeah,
Well,
like,
where's he going to get drafted, and does it change with the running back eligibility tag?
Oh yeah, if he's more eligible,
if he's
probably
dual
top 3
eligible,
rounds.
yeah. If
then
he's
yeah,
dual
it makes him
eligible,
more
then
valuable.
yeah, it'll make it.
Is he
more
the
valuable.
102 then at that point?
Oh no,
Oh, whoa.
No.
no. God.
Who's the 102
No.
then?
Well, who's the
Behind
101
Jonathan
for you
Taylor.
then?
What
Who's the
Jonathan Taylor.
101? Who's
Jonathan
the
Taylor.
101?
Yeah, okay, I was gonna say
The
Jonathan
102
Taylor. Fair enough.
102 is probably Derrick Henry.
he-
Like,
I was gonna say it's that's
Coming off-
debatable.
Coming
Uh,
off the
I-
list
you know,
that
I-
has ended the careers of Maurice Jones-Drew and other running backs. I don't know.
I think we're in 2020 situation all over again. I think the 101 is Jonathan Taylor, and I think the 102 right now is probably Cooper Kupp.
It might be Cooper Kupp. That's what I was gonna say. It's really hard for it to not be your running back. It historically, is always several
Mhm.
running backs. That's why I get the question. Right,
Yeah.
if he had running back eligibility, would he get up that high? The answer is maybe, but I kind of doubt it, just because of the body of work. Whereas people are going to be flying to overpay, and then there's also like Alvin Kamara still exists.
Yeah.
Tried
Right.
and true, evergreen.
You're hoping that he
It's
has
not
a
a sexy
quarterback.
strategy. You're hoping, but you'll know in redraft, which is what this is geared for. I know we go all over the road, but like you'll know.
Drunkenly,
You'll have an
yes,
idea.
all over the road.
Yes, largely drunkenly. But you'll know by then who the quarterback will be, and that'll dictate a good amount of that. But if it was somebody above Taysom Hill level replacement, it might very well be Alvin Kamara again, despite the fact that he missed a couple games.
I think we're going to end up having a lot of the same discussions this offseason that we had this past one. Is yes, Derrick Henry was a dominant force. How long can he really do it? Is this the end?
He's still RB10.
And he's going to slide because of it.
Yep.
I think right now in PPR, for me, it's Jonathan Taylor's the 101. I think Cooper Kupp, because he's that far ahead of everyone else, is probably the 102. And then after that, it's probably Austin Eckler, just because the dual catch eligibility, because he's so young and so talented on that offense. And then you're looking at the usual suspects, Cook, Kamara, Derrick Henry, anybody in there. And then we have to see what happens in Dallas, because if Zeke is gone for whatever reason, Tony Pollard is near that conversation.
Well, and some dinosaur is going to way overpay for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask.
Yeah,
I want to see where he's going to end up, because he can be anywhere in really the first round, barring the top 4 or 5. But he could be up there. He could even be even touching the second round. That's going to be interesting to see where it all ends up.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be a talking point all off season. But to answer your question, Jack, no, Debo doesn't get into that conversation for me. I still don't think
even without the RB tag,
even with
the
RB tag. But I don't think. I think what we've seen the last few weeks from them, with Ayuk getting mixed in and with Kittle finally healthy, they're using the offense the way that we all thought they would use it, with Ayuk being the number 1 guy, with Kittle essentially being the number 2 option, and then Debo just being their gadget player that they use in any way, shape, or form that they can. And for the first half of the season, it just worked out great if you had Debo Samuel. And I don't think you can cash on that going into the future, because I don't think he's going to keep up that efficiency and production he had at the beginning.
Especially if you actually theoretically had Elijah Mitchell actually healthy at the start of the year, and you're not talking about he's fighting with Jeff Wilson for carries. It's a different equation.
Raheem Mostert.
Oh, Raheem Mostert
is with him.
Raheem Mostert. That's what a way to get Wally pipped.
Right.
Happened so fast.
By like 5 guys.
Yeah.
Remember when Trey Sermon was a thing?
No.
Yes. I was there for Jack Knows Best with the Wheel of Wow. Be sure to follow us.
The Wheel of Wow.
Submit your name suggestions for the Wheel of Wow. If you can top it, we'll probably go with it.
Well, this has gone swimmingly, boys, because we are a half hour into the show, and now we're to the Titans half of the Thursday night game. So we are cooking.
I knew this was going to happen.
Off the rails. We can't help it.
Jack, you're going to have to help me with this note. I have no clue what you mean by this shorthand.
Ryan Miami Hill? You don't know what I mean? You
no clue
don't
whatsoever.
Recognize the fact that Ryan Tannehill has regressed to the point where he looks like Adam Gase's Miami Ryan Tannehill?
See, if it was Tannehill, then okay, I could get it. But it's Tannehill, so now you just threw me off.
No, it's Ryan Miami Hill at this point, because
none of it matters, because we have a question from the audience.
All right, a two-parter.
Two-parter from Rennie or Renee Rodriguez, who still hasn't told us how to pronounce their name. We've been
spell it phonetically in the chat.
We would love for you to spell it phonetically.
I just want to be proven right here.
Mm-hmm.
Dak or Fields, Taysom Hill or Lamar Jackson.
I don't know why it matters if it's PPR though, unless you're thinking Hills, you can put him in there. He gets three receptions from Kamara or something. Wow. Well, we don't even know if Lamar's playing.
Yeah.
Right.
So that one's
today.
Yeah, still off the practice. I mean, it was a high ankle, right? That's what I remember.
No,
it was just an ankle.
It was a low. It wasn't even a sprain. Reportedly, it's a bruise.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the stomach bug.
No, it's not his irritable bowel syndrome this time, Jordan. However, Lamar probably not playing. Tyler Huntley, is he available? Because he's a must start.
Hill. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then after that, I'm probably looking at Fields, as much as it pains me to say that, because
I hate that we're at a point that this is a legit.
Yes.
I hate that this is legit.
Rene Rodriguez. Nice. I apologize. Rene Rodriguez. I will remember that going forward. Continue, friends.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Fields here because I don't trust Dak. I think that Zeke or Pollard takes away any throwing, passing touchdowns, and it's just his rushing ability helps him. So, but you have to go with Hill because you don't even know if Jackson's playing.
I just hate having to trust Fields. Like I know it's the rushing upside, but I mean, if you can't really pair it with like a good passing attack, like it really doesn't mean too much. You just have a glorified running back in your quarterback spot. I don't know. I kind of hope that Dak can break out against the Washington football team, who's terrible against quarterbacks.
Right. Well, 2 weeks ago against Washington, he was QB 23 with 12 points. So I get why it's tough to trust. What's difficult for me is Dak has still had at least 200 yards passing every week since week 4. He doesn't have any rushing at all anymore, which we kind of figured coming into the season, coming off the ankle injury and how that derailed an entire year for him. What's really held him back is he's got 3 interceptions in the last 3 games and 3 passing touchdowns. That's what's holding him back. If he can throw the ball into the end zone like he did before the bye, he had at least 3 passing touchdowns every game up until week 7. And then he's only done that once since then. So he has gone ice cold throwing the football into the end zone, throwing it through the air to get yardage, no problem. But unlike any other position, getting yards doesn't matter for the quarterback unless it's rushing.
I see Jack is raising his hand.
Because I have a question. Does your answer change based on if we get Taylor Heineke, if we get Gilbert Godfrey, or if we get Kyle Allen?
Garrett Gilbert.
No. I like that way. I like that much
Godfrey.
better. I like that much better.
He is best known, the quarterback for the Washington football team, Gilbert Godfrey. He is best known for his telling of The Aristocrats. Mm-hmm. He is also well known for his performance as Iago in Aladdin. So he is truly a multi-talented man.
He was the voice of the Aflac Duck before he got into pro football. Like it's amazing.
Well, the only reason I know even who he is because he played for SMU. So that's about all I know about him. But outside of that, I mean, also Gilbert Godfrey is known for Problem Child. For really people who are just obscure, that's a great movie. You should watch it. That child is the devil, and I just love that movie. Sorry.
So back to the question: Dak Prescott versus the Washington football team. Does it change based on quarterback?
I don't think so.
No, not for me.
I think he puts up the same numbers, and they have roughly the same offense either way. I mean, no matter who's at QB. The defense has proven they will find a way to let Washington stay in it. So
it would change more for me, Jack, if half of Washington's defense got COVID again. And I'm not trying to be morbid. That's like literally a thing that happened. So if that happened again, then it would matter. But honestly, I don't know that you're going to be able to not start Dak no matter what in this equation. Like just looking at what your available options are, because I agree with you. I don't know that Lamar is going to play. So I'd
rather go with like Jimmy Garoppolo.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
Not on a Thursday.
With your fantasy football life on the line, you are trusting Jimmy Gorgeous? Maybe if it's an ad, if it's an advertisement, if we're selling snacks, sure. Jimmy G all the way. No.
But no, you make a good point, though. Like, if you're going to go Dak or somebody else, I don't feel great about Fields, and I know it's the Seahawks. Like, I would have to have a better option to take him out. I know Dak's has not been playing as well.
Seattle's been sneaky good lately.
No, Fields, I just don't trust it. The turnovers, the just
It's
the
all of it, yeah.
inconsistent play. Like, how are you going to? It's the same thing. It's like I couldn't trust that either in my fantasy playoffs. I think you're going to have to ride with Dak, is what I would do, and then realistically, you're hoping Lamar can get right, and then I think it's a question at that point of if Lamar can't get right, would you play Huntley or would you try and roll Taysom Hill? That's kind of where I'm.
Huntley.
I'd go Huntley
Yeah.
too after what
Yeah.
Taysom Hill did last week for sure. So to me, it'd be Dak and Lamar. And then even if Lamar's not playing, I want Huntley and I'll go Dak Huntley. And I'm going to avoid the Taysom Hill, Justin Fields.
Yeah,
all
I
that.
mean,
wanna
honestly, if
avoid
this
it.
is the question, then I would just be Baltimore QB would be the
Yeah.
answer to the
yeah,
question.
Dak and then Baltimore QB becomes the answer.
And then Hill
Do you have
over
more faith in
Fields.
Jared Goff than Dak?
we'll be throwing those
Assuming
golf
he's healthy,
plays.
assuming he
Yeah.
gets off the COVID list, would you rather play him against the Falcons over Dak versus the Washington football team?
Are we really having this conversation? Like,
You couldn't
No, I'd
pay
still
me to
play
start
Dak,
Jared
yeah.
Goff.
In the
okay?
playoffs.
Hey,
You couldn't
that
pay me.
is
Like,
the week 14 week 13 NFC player of the week.
and every other week he's 25.
He had 3 touchdowns last week,
All
sir.
right, so Justin Fields, by the way. So the game against Baltimore when he only had 11 pass attempts and he got hurt. Taking that out of the equation, his last 4 full games that he has started and finished, QB finish 5, 10, 10, and 10. It's all about the rushing
Wow.
floor, but he's giving it to you. So
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize it was that. Oh.
that's why this is a discussion, because he's given you a solid floor. My biggest issue is he's dealing with an ankle injury that he just tweaked on Monday. They're playing on a short week. And if you're telling me that he's not going to have that same escapability, then to me, that lowers the floor and it lowers the ceiling for that matter. So I would rather have Huntley. If you're telling me this is like a 2 QB situation where
I
you
think
have
that's what
to
we're
pick,
doing here.
I think it's
2
two
of
different
them?
teams. That's my take.
that could be 2.
That's what. Yeah.
Well, Renee, you're still here, I'm guessing, listening to us kind of ruminate on this. Feel free to tag on.
Tell us
We'll
otherwise.
add it.
But
Is it 2 leagues or is it two QB league?
Yeah, to me,
For me, it
I
doesn't
would go
matter
with
much.
Dak because he has had the lower finishes the last couple of weeks, but the difference between Fields and Dak has been roughly 4 points. And Fields has come out on top each of those weeks, but I feel like if he gets those passing touchdowns, Dak gets those passing touchdowns like I was talking about, then he surpasses Fields pretty easily. It's just a matter of who's falling into the end zone for him on a weekly basis. And recently it's just been the running backs. All right, I don't even know where we are in this sheet. We're so lost at this point.
We were
We
debating.
are, but I do have
So
breaking
delayed.
We
news.
haven't gotten through Titans yet.
I do have breaking news though. Saints Pro Bowl defensive end Cameron Jordan, he might be facing a fine because he has been late putting up his Christmas tree and his Christmas lights, per Nickelodeon.
Oh my
Cameron
gosh.
Jordan is the betting favorite for the MVP officially.
That's your breaking news.
Yep.
Is this
All right,
usually
we
what
need a
happens?
new
Yeah, I was
podcast
gonna say.
editor.
I was gonna say.
Oh,
We just had to let Jack go real quick.
Jack had to be. Had
Let
to get
him refresh. Let him get a drink and see if he gets his mind right here.
is that like the equivalent of being slimed when you just kick them out? Like,
Yeah, just slime him real quick. Just remember that the last MVP ended up as Josh Allen's backup in Buffalo. Okay, so it's
so
not really a prestigious
Cameron
honor.
Jordan to the Jaguars. Then is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
So maybe Josh Allen's backup.
Yes, there
See
you
how
go.
that works?
Just keep the tradition going.
Perfect.
All right, let's try to run through some of this.
I was going to
shall
say,
we?
Jack, what is your note on Ryan Tannehill with his regression?
Oh, we're
we-
still
we-
at
we
it.
already beat.
We're still
like
there.
it was in Miami. That's what he's going for.
No, he's terrible. You can't start him in fantasy football. That's the
Yeah, we're moving on from the
Agreed.
Miami joke, but get the
Perfect.
nugget out that you wanted. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't rely on Ryan Tannehill this week in the playoffs. I'm okay with that. That sounds
All right,
like
let's
sage
skip through
advice.
some of this. Julio, we can skip my gloating about Julio sucking this year. You're all welcome. Thank you for listening to my TED talk earlier in the season. No injury designation, but it doesn't matter. Feelings on Foreman, we already talked about. Are we even sure AJ Brown's playing?
No, it's not confirmed.
Yeah.
But if he is, are you willing?
If
to
he
throw
does,
him out
do
on
you
the
trust it?
Probably not.
I want to.
Of course you want to. But you saw how well Jones just did.
It's another thing where it just depends on what your team is. Like,
well,
if you're in the second round of the playoffs and you're having this debate, what has gotten you to this point without AJ Brown?
You've already made other arrangements.
Yeah,
so
I have
gotta be on
Russell
it. Gotta have-
Gage, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and AJ Brown. Rank them. Because for me,
that's just it.
AJ
But
Brown is last.
Yeah, last considerably. He hasn't even been cleared.
The issue is with Amon-Ra St. Brown is Jared Goff.
Don't care.
Yeah.
Don't care. Also, don't care. High five, Jack.
Woo!
Let me just say quickly, if AJ Brown does play, the San Francisco 49ers secondary is very banged up, very exploitable. So there is a chance that he could play well, but he still needs to be cleared. You're right. He's still an IR. Who knows? It's a roll of the dice, and it's hard to do in your second semifinals in the playoffs.
Yeah, I would think that if he's playing, unless you have something that's been absolutely crushing it, you're probably playing him as your flex and just hoping it works out. But to me, yeah, I would think he's probably not even going to play. They're just going to be as cautious as possible with him, because why try to rush him back?
He opens the week as wide receiver 30 in the ECR, and I think that's largely a waste of time because I really don't see how he's going to get cleared. And
yeah,
I'm not worried about it.
All right, moving on to Saturday. Browns-Packers. Browns are still without basically everyone. So is there anyone worth starting on the Browns if they still don't get like Baker Mayfield and Case Keenum back?
Yeah, Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Through.
Yeah.
Big Nicholas Chubb.
Nicholas Chubinski.
But is Hunt back?
No.
Okay.
They already covered that this week. That's the injury report. Hunt's not playing this week.
Are you even looking at the show sheet, Jason?
You act like I look at anything when I talk.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
This is all off I guess.
Kareem Hunt is one of the many Cleveland Browns still on the COVID list. Even if he wasn't, he's dealing with the ankle injury. They've already ruled him out for this week. And when we talked to Edwin last week, he said that for all intents and purposes, Kareem Hunt's season's probably over.
Yeah, it was a question that was specifically asked. So he's not coming back, is the general consensus for this season.
All right, so does that shift?
DBJ, I like.
So if they get cleared, Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry, are you putting them back into your lineup? Like Baker Mayfield, you weren't playing it.
You weren't playing Baker Mayfield. If he gets cleared, I'll start Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, just because they literally have nobody else.
That's
really
exactly the point.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no one else to throw to.
Yeah.
I would say
Why do you
deep
guys hate
flex.
Donovan? Why do you hate Donovan so much?
Oh. I love Jason. I want to find
it's
someone
not
that
our
loves
hating him.
just-
It's Baker hating throwing him the ball.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
I don't hate Donovan Peoples-Jones. I like
feel
him
like
quite a
John
bit.
Travolta in the meme. Like, do you watch Donovan Peoples-Jones run routes and play football and get the ball hits him in the hands and he doesn't catch it? Like, is that?
He got really well defended this past week. They had two.
No, he dropped some open.
I'm
passes.
so close to making a derogatory motion at you, Jason.
So Brown.
I'm so close.
So Browns, Nick Chubb, maybe Jarvis Landry. That's it. Don't care about the tight ends. Irrelevant. Packers. What's going on in the backfield?
Exactly what should have been happening all along.
If only somebody
Welcome,
could have predicted
America.
this.
It's another victory lap for Steve.
That's right. Take that, Cleat Eye. Merry Christmas, filthy animals. Yeah, I mean, look, they're splitting the carries as they should. Like, he is a monster. We've already said AJ Dillon, he is Derrick Henry light. And he's basically on the same career trajectory, just being held back by Matt LaFleur, refusing to give him the touches he deserves. And eventually he'll fly and break free.
Or Matt LaFleur will get fired and he'll stay right where he is, and Matt LaFleur will get a new job.
AJ
They're too good.
just move
They're
on to
too
greener
good
pastures
for that to happen.
Yeah. But I mean, he's getting pass catching work. He's getting the between the tackles and the goal line work. Like, he's been more efficient and a better back in general than Aaron Jones has. They're a lot closer in the rankings for me than they ever would have been at the beginning of the season. But I feel like you got to start both of them if you got them.
Yeah,
There is
I
one
agree
note.
with that.
I was going to say, there is one note just for the Packers in general. MVS was added to the COVID list, which is not normally something we would spend time even discussing. But given the amount of schlock that is being asked to be started across because of all the different COVID things, that was actually on the radar at this point. So one less name.
Lazard becomes
He's been playing
pretty
great well.
That was going to be my question to the room: is Alan Lazard a thing for this week? If you were
wide receiver 3/flex for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
I agree. If MVS isn't going, then Alan Lazard suddenly becomes attractive.
He's the home run swing. Yep.
Mhm.
All right,
And-
Saturday night game is Colts Cardinals.
Again.
Yeah.
Do
And
we need to just lay out for Jordan? Is this what
that's
Yeah,
what
I'm just gonna.
that's what I was gonna say.
Jordan.
I'm gonna
Go
put
ahead,
myself
Jordan.
on mute
You got
and
Wait,
you got it, buddy.
Jack, where is the note about Carson Wentz comeback player of the year? I didn't write that.
deleted
That was you.
because we were running out of time.
And you got rid of that? Like, that is an important nugget of
All the
information that I
notes.
wanted to
Well, it's because people are saying he should be the betting favorite for comeback player of the year.
Okay.
Why?
I had a little-
He
I had a little
hasn't
note
been
about
that
Hey,
good.
whoa. That's, you know what? Let's think about who should be the comeback player of the year. That's all just silently take 47 seconds, one for each of his passing yards this past week. And just think about Carson Wentz as the comeback player of the year.
Exactly. He hasn't been that good.
No.
When he had
Would I
laser
be the
pointed
comeback
balls
player
at
of the
his
year if I could turn around and hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor? Is that the criteria?
Ryan Tannehill won it doing that, so why not?
At least Tannehill threw the ball to AJ Brown, though.
I mean,
Carson Wentz threw it to
Michael Pittman, exactly. Even though it hasn't been a thing in a while. I'll
It
say
happened
though,
like
I
2 years
just
ago.
wanted to
Now
say
I have
that
to look. Now you've thrown me off on a tangent. Now I have
Steve's
to
gonna go
look.
do research. We're gonna continue the show while that happens, and he'll circle
right, yeah,
back
you
around
go
with
ahead.
us. So the question directly becomes for the Colts, segueing away from Carson Wentz comeback player of the year, the most asinine conversation I think I've ever heard. There's no chance if that was to happen. I'm retiring. I'm just done. I'm hanging it up because the world makes no sense anymore. I'm just old and in the way at that point. I don't know what I'm not down with the kids anymore if that's how we're voting. But I think the legitimate question is, does Carson Wentz / Michael Pittman combo come back in this game, or is this yet another Jonathan Taylor does everything because Jonathan Taylor does Jonathan Taylor things? What do we think?
Well, I think you can expect Jonathan Taylor to be Jonathan Taylor. I feel like every game he's like at least good for 20 carries, 100 yards, and a touchdown. But it's just a matter of, you're right. Are they going to have to air it out? Is it going to be one of those games that they're not going to be able to rely on the run game, be up by a comfortable amount, and Carson Wentz does have to throw the ball? Because that's when I think Pittman does get involved. I think it just depends on game script. And the way the Cardinals are playing, I don't know how it's going to shape up. What they showed against the Lions, I was pretty pathetic.
I think they got caught with their pants down. I think they got caught napping.
Well,
It
and
seemed
the
like
reason for that
Oh, here we go.
is because Cliff Kingsbury, like most college to NFL coaches, is a grifter. Urban Meyer was a grifter.
This guy gets it.
Kingsbury is a grifter. Matt Rule is a grifter because Matt Rule is talking about shifting between Cam Newton, who hasn't been good, but he won't even commit to Sam Darnold, who also hasn't been good, but you have under contract next year. You have to play Sam Darnold.
I cannot wait to
do it.
I cannot wait to have this conversation with you in the offseason properly about, is there any reason to ever hire a college coach to coach in the NFL for your NFL football team ever under any circumstances? Because I've seen very little evidence to suggest that there ever would be a reason to do that based on performance.
If you went and hired
got my research.
Yeah.
We'll have that conversation in detail
If you
in the
went
offseason.
I'll summarize it quick. If you went and hired a Luke Fickell from Cincinnati, who is a guy who builds things, maybe. At hiring any big Division I coach, no. Don't
Okay.
do it.
All
Pete
right.
Carroll?
He failed his first time in the NFL, so no. And he hasn't been that great his second. Russell Wilson carried him. Steve, go ahead.
All right. So in 2019, when Ryan Tannehill won Comeback Player of the Year, remember he relieved Mariota halfway through the season. So he only had 10 official games started. So on a per game basis, Ryan Tannehill had a 70.3% completion percentage, 228.5 passing yards per game on 24 pass attempts. Carson Wentz has 31 pass attempts per game right now, 62.7% completion percentage, 214.6 yards. He's averaging about half a touchdown less per game through the air, and 2% less of his completions are resulting in touchdowns. So it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison. It is close. He's getting sacked significantly less than Tannehill was too. So
Yeah.
playing behind
that
a
did
better
happen a
line.
lot.
Yeah.
He
That's
did.
a really
He was
good-
getting sacked a lot in the first 3 games. Like that had a lot to do with why they started off
Mhm.
slow, and then they just figured it out. But no, let's just end it. I was kidding, and I just want to say, let me just tie a bow on this. Dak Prescott won that award before the first week ever started. It's like I'm serious. Like like if you didn't put money on that future, what are you doing? Like that's
All they
free
have
money.
to do is finish what they've already started and just make the playoffs.
Right.
Don't
That's
have to
it.
win a playoff game. Just got to
Yep,
get
just
to
gotta
the
get there.
playoffs.
And they were talking.
That's
He's treading water now. Doesn't matter if he makes
Right?
it.
Yeah, it's
make the
not
playoffs.
relevant.
It's his to lose.
So let me just put a bow on the Colts here. Do we all think it's a big Jonathan Taylor game? Is that likely?
Every
I think
game's a
that's
big
every
Jonathan
game's
Taylor
a big Jonathan Taylor game. I think you're at this point, if you're counting on huge passing numbers from Wentz and Pittman, I prepare for disappointment. They might not have better.
The
options.
Cardinals just got destroyed by Craig Reynolds. I'm pretty sure Jonathan Taylor's
pretty sure
going to
Jonathan
be okay.
Taylor can do it. And then while we have Jordan right here queued up, let's go to the Cardinals real quick. I know you wanted to talk about Edmonds versus Connor, but I have precious little in the way of details on that.
Yeah, it's like so. Obviously, when Edmonds was out, Connor was like a fantasy boon. He was like getting all these receptions, getting all these points. Now that Edmonds is back, it seems like Connor's taking a little bit of a back seat. Maybe it's back to what we saw earlier. Kind of a 50-50 split. We don't know if Connor will get those goal line touchdowns. Probably will. I'm just asking, like, is it going to affect one or the other? If you've been riding Connor all this way to this point during that stretch, do you have confidence putting him back in? Because I don't think you're going to get what you were getting before. And if you have Edmonds, do you use him this week? It's a tough rush defense. The Colts do have a good run defense, but they can get gashed from time to time. I don't know. I just want to hear you guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah, because of who they're playing this week, I'm okay going with Edmonds. Outside of that, I don't trust Connor to find the end zone, which you're really kind of basing it on.
Well, okay. So here's what I would say too. At the beginning of the season, it really was they were trying to get their footing and they weren't giving James Conner a lot of snaps. Like he was barely involved in the game plan for the first 2 weeks. But from week 3 on in PPR, his finishes were RB 14, 9, 32, 35, 23, 19, and 1. And that's all with Chase Edmonds playing. Like those are all the games that Chase Edmonds was in there. And then he got hurt. And it's been the James Conner show since then, but he was getting a majority of the touches, the goal line, the red zone work anyway. Like really all that was happening is Chase Edmonds was taking away the pass catching, but from weeks 3 through 8, I mean, like I just listed there, he had a grand total of 4 targets, James Conner, and he still was a top 20 back 3 times. So yeah, if you've been rolling Conner to this point, you still are, as long as he's healthy. I mean, you got to just ride it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't feel as confident that you're going to get the gaudy numbers.
I don't think he's a top 10 guy like he had been with.
What's your
with
other
Edmonds in the
option?
lineup, but he's still got to be at least an RB2. All right, Sunday. Lions, Falcons. They look to potentially be getting all of their people back. Jamal Williams is back off the COVID list. DeAndre Swift is back at practice, theoretically going to play this week. Those Lions, they're really pushing to get out of the top 5. They hate good picks. So they
made the right decision.
They signed Craig Reynolds to be their surefire number 3. Sorry, Jamar Jefferson.
I don't know about that. He might be the number 2.
Oh, you think he's taking Jamal Williams' job?
Who's
if you're
looked
saying
better?
Jamal Williams is looking for work, here at Important Nonsense, we would just like to say Jamal Williams, the door is always open.
Whatever you want.
He will
that
be.
dude
Let
is
me know.
cool.
Hit me
I
up.
love him.
Hit me up.
Jamal Williams, yes, we need to reach out to him. We'll do that in the offseason. Through my connections with the Believe in Lions podcast, I'll try and get in touch.
I missed those episodes of Jamal that. We need to get that back. Okay.
However, I think Craig Reynolds may have won the RB2 job. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not this week. Neither of them are playable because of this. Swift is, but long term, Craig Reynolds is a dynasty asset.
Yeah, it's a very interesting ad if he's available on your waivers right now. Certainly someone to hold on the back end of your bench, because even if he isn't the guy immediately or he isn't the guy at the start of next season, it was only a 2-year deal for Williams. So beyond that, he could certainly have a role. Let's see. Who do you trust on the Falcons this week? We kind of talked about Pitts a little bit. It depends on your other options. I would still trust Pitts inside the top 10 at tight end. It just depends on who else you've got. In the case of Goedert, I would absolutely go Goedert instead. But Pitts has been fine. He's been a little bit more consistent recently. And then Russell Gage has been on fire. Anybody other than that, like Cordarrelle Patterson is what he is at this point, right? You still got to play him, but he just hasn't been as good as you wanted him to be from the beginning of the season.
I think those are the only 3 starts. It's Patterson, it's Gage, and it's Pitts. And who else on the Falcons would you?
Unless Jason's gonna push Olamide Zaccheaus on us, then.
Oh, he's learned. He couldn't even make eye contact with you.
He
couldn't even be bothered to make eye contact with Jordan. He just no.
All right, good. We'll move on.
Leave your body.
I was busy going to our dynasty league and picking up Craig Reynolds.
Smart.
Smart.
I knew
That is
you
smart.
were focused on something. Like,
Yeah.
I knew
That is
I got real lost at what we were talking about. I'm like, this should be something that I go for.
Yeah. Rams,
boy.
Vikings. So if you got burned by Henderson last week, are you trusting him this week?
No.
Probably not.
I can't believe it. Sony Michel is the RB1 in LA.
Well, it's the same thing though, right? We talked about this before where they're giving him the between the tackle stuff. He's just not a pass catcher. He never has been. Like Henderson eventually will get worked back into that like third down role, but I think he's still banged up and dealing with injuries. And with them being so thin at running back, they know what their long-term goal is. It's not to win a game in week 16. Their long-term goal is to win it all. So they want their whole team as healthy as possible. And in order to do that, I think they're going to preserve somebody like Darrell Henderson until they actually need him in the playoffs. So yeah, let Sony Michel have as many carries as he can possibly handle right now so that your actual skilled players are ready to go when it matters.
Yeah, because like I said, Sony Michel looks like the RB1. Henderson doesn't look great.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. It's injury, but Sony Michel is a RB1 in fantasy. Who'd have thought? Not me.
So is this like
One?
is this
Certainly
like
not
last
2.
season now? So if you're doing, thanks to our sponsors at Underdog, remember to use promo code Nonsense if you want to go ahead and play along. They are doing the playoff best ball where you can draft teams based on players who perform in the playoffs. So if you were interested in doing something like that, Jack, and you were looking at long term, so you would have Sony Michel and you've got Darrell Henderson. Is Sony Michel this year's Leonard Fournette?
Oh, I don't think so. That's why this motion. Then you compare it. Oh, He could
Because
be.
remember last year, Ronald Jones for the first 13 weeks of the season was an RB1 on the Bucks, and then all of a sudden he gets hurt. They give a bulk of the load to Leonard Fournette, like they should have been doing all along. And Leonard Fournette is the one they end up riding through the rest of the regular season and all through the playoffs. And then he's just the guy the following season. Now, that won't be the exact situation here, because even if they do ride Sony Michel the rest of the way, they'll get Cam Akers back next year. But I mean, could for this time, would this be Sony Michel flipping the script?
I'll say this for the playoff best ball run. You have to build lineups with both, and you have to build lineups around both. And by that, I mean, to win a tournament, it's really, really difficult. I had 30 tournament lineups. I had, I think, 5 that were eliminated in the quarterfinals, the first round of the playoffs, that made it to the playoffs. And I have 1 out of 30 that is making it to the semifinals. It's really, really hard to win a best ball tournament. So to do it effectively, you have to hedge. And I don't mean hedging on your individual teams. You cannot build a playoff roster with both Henderson and Sony Michel. But you have to build playoff rosters with both. Because if you don't, you're really flipping a coin. And that's all I can say. I don't know that I can make a definitive seal of approval other than the fact that 2022 Cam Akers, let's frickin' go.
Yeah. Vikings, we have no notes because why would you, right? It's just,
You know who you're starting.
Amazing. That's why.
it is what it is.
You know who you're starting on the Vikings.
Go Justin Jefferson. Woohoo.
Just a question of whether or not Dillon gets cleared. If Dillon does get cleared, you're probably going to start him. Realistically, probably don't have better choices.
And Osborne goes back to the waiver wire.
That's really it. It's not a hard team to
And
kind of
Tyler
analyze.
So Jags and Jets, Carlos Hyde's season's over. They put him on IR dealing with the concussion. He missed this past week, and they said they're just, erring on the side of caution. I feel like this is, not to put any conspiracy theories out there, but this is just them. We never wanted Carlos Hyde. This was an Urban Meyer thing. We want to give James Robinson the workload. So James Robinson, he's the bell cow. How high does he go now rest of season?
He's an RB1 rest of the way.
You have to think, right? I mean, he's not really competing with anybody.
Nick Chubb or James Robinson?
Nick Chubb.
Nick
pure
Chubb.
talent. Yeah.
Nick Chubb. I will say I have Robinson at like 8 in my running back rankings.
See,
for
that's
this
the
week.
thing,
It's
though.
something like
They're
that.
both up there.
Yeah, I don't know about rest of the way. I'm still doing week by week there with that. But for this week, yeah, he'd be top 10 for me this week, Robinson.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right.
He's going to be in that neighborhood, if nothing else. We can argue about individual numbers if we really want to spend the time. But frankly, I don't think it's worth it. That's how ugly running back is, folks. And I will say I did appreciate last week the stuff it Urban Meyer, get out of here. We'll give James Robinson 30 carries attitude. It wasn't quite 30, but I appreciated it where it was like, oh, the second Urban Meyer gets out the door, everybody else is like, no, James Robinson right back to his normal job.
Right.
So you can kind of see where the problem was in that regard.
And then my only note on the Jets was that Michael Carter was added to the COVID list, but the other Michael Carter, not the running back,
right?
Michael Carter.
Good note.
So if you saw that pop up on your news feed today, just understand they have 2 Michael Carters.
Tevin Coleman didn't suddenly become like a conversation again.
Right. Giants, Eagles, Daniel Jones season is officially over, dealing with the neck injury. And Mike Glennon got benched. Is he going to start? Or is it going to be Jake Fromm?
They haven't named a starter yet.
Okay. So I
Which
feel like
it's Jake Fromm.
Yeah, it's probably Fromm's job to lose. I think either way, if the Eagles are available and you need to play a defense, there's a good streaming option for you right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you should have picked them up a while ago.
Yeah. Is there anybody worth starting on the Giants?
I told you that.
Is there anyone worth starting on the Giants?
Saquon.
Is
Yeah, but
Saquon
even
worth
that's
starting?
little-
You probably
that's
don't
little
have
t-
better choices.
Yeah.
Like, what are your other options?
Do you not? If you
Ronald
got to this
Jones.
point, is Saquon the reason you
You know
got
what?
there?
That's actually fair. You might have better choices by now.
I mean, you
Let's
had to
see.
have a contingency
No,
plan.
no. It's a good note. Let's see.
If Austin Eckler out, Justin Jackson,
Let's see.
I'd even play over.
For argument's
Barkley.
sake, though, Neil, you're right. The only one that you would consider is Saquon.
Yeah.
Is Saquon, and he'd be somewhere like around 22, right?
Yeah,
Ish.
So,
back
like,
end
flex
RB2
territory.
flex
Yeah.
territory. Yeah.
It'd be Saquon if it's anybody.
I don't know if Jake Fromm is named the
Oh.
starter. You know my theory here. Is
Don't go
the
down this
backup.
rabbit hole. No,
It's a tight end, and I'm gonna say it because I have to every time. It's a backup.
don't push Evan Engram on people, Jason.
Evan Ingram can't be an option.
Okay, let's.
No, this is slanderous. I can't. No, that's
Let's
Only
move
because
on.
it's a backup. You gotta trust it.
No, you
No.
don't have to
suckered into
trust
Strong
that
it.
disagree.
swinging baloney. No, hard pass. Hard pass on all of what he just said.
Jason just lying on international television.
Oy.
All right. So the question that you have here on the notes, Nerd Man, is: are we trusting Hurts after his first game against the Giants?
Yeah.
So
in
a
his
couple
first
weeks
game-
ago against the Giants, he was QB 27. He had 3 picks, no touchdowns.
That's
So-
the whole reason I brought it up, because I was just like, I know that he had such a bad game, but he was dealing with injury. I feel comfortable starting him.
You
He
should.
has been very consistent because he has that rushing floor, but it's just something that I wanted to ask you guys because people won't just believe what I say.
So again, yes, he finished QB 27 week 12 against the Giants. He finished QB 25 week 8 against the Lions. Go figure.
Yeah.
The two defenses that shut him down, the Giants and the Lions.
I have
And
Jalen
yes,
Hurts
he's
QB
playing
7.
the Giants again,
So,
but literally every other week he's been a top 12 option at
Mhm.
QB. And outside of week 9 against the Chargers, when he finished exactly 12, he's been a top 10 option every week. So yes, he's an absolute, I don't care, you must start it. This is one of those dance with the one that brought you.
mhm.
Like, yes, it's a bad matchup. Yes, he had a bad game against them before, but if you're
There's
in the
every
second
chance-
round, he's the reason you're in.
There's
the
every chance he does what he did literally yesterday, and he turns the ball over twice and then falls into the end zone twice and then throws a meaningless touchdown at the end of the game. And at the end of the day, you smile.
Yep.
Every
Also,
chance.
if you have somebody like that you could even consider playing over Hurts, like a Herbert or something like that, well then screw you. Okay.
Now, what are your first world problems? Get your first world problems off my show. But your
Like,
next question.
what was it, a couple of years ago when we were doing this show and somebody said, who do I start, Lamar or Mahomes? I don't know.
Oh, there were multiple times
Well,
when
we-
had
when
questions
we
get
were on with,
submitted like that.
With John 2 weeks ago, we had a question, and the guy who answered had like, I forget what his options were, but it was
Yeah.
6 like RB1s. And he's like, which 3 should I play?
I was
Play.
watching that show. Yeah. Mhm. I was like, what
Do
is
you-
this team? That guy that's in the super competitive 6-team league? Yeah.
Yeah.
remember
I have a
that.
question about your next note, though, which is, do you play an RB for the Eagles? I'm just grammatically confused by it. Like,
Yeah,
should you play an RB for the Eagles? Is a different question. Like the way that's phrased, just
Like,
kind of
can
like
you?
shut my.
Like,
Cannot
literally,
figure that
can
out.
you?
Yeah, that's my thing. I'm not willing to trust an Eagles running back. I don't like how they're splitting the carries. I don't like that, Hurts is probably going to steal the touchdowns. So given the option, would you start any of the Eagles running backs? And if so, which one?
Well, I'd have to be Sanders.
Yeah.
Like,
I
you had to
hate
play one.
Miles Sanders.
Yeah, but if you had
Miles
to play one.
Sanders is a horrible, terrible NFL player that nobody should have rostered. If you have Miles Sanders and you're in the second round of the playoffs, it's because whoever drafted Miles Sanders cut them and you picked him up off waivers and stashed him deep on your bench until this point. And now, congratulations, you've done it. He has back-to-back games over 120 yards rushing. He's been a top 15 running back in PPR the last 2 weeks. Yes, that you would play Miles Sanders because if your team somehow isn't in the consolation bracket, then yes, Miles Sanders would be the guy to play.
If you're asking me if do you want to stream Jordan Howard as some
Jordan
sort
Howard,
of weird
Boston
replacement,
Scott, Kenny Gainwell, no.
not doing much for me. Jordan Howard had 70 rushing yards last week, and he does occasionally do stuff, but you're going to ask me to count on that in a playoff game?
No.
Not if I have other options.
And then
the only advantage you would have if for some reason you do have to play Howard is if Jake Fromm just absolutely craps the bed and Philadelphia just runs.
It's a blowout.
It's a blowout.
Okay.
And
it's
they just rest
35-3
the
in the
starters
third
in the
quarter,
third
but
quarter.
you
and
would-
it's just Jordan Howard all fourth quarter.
But
Okay,
that's
sure.
something that you can't rely on. That's not something you can put Jordan Howard in confidently and believe that's going to happen.
Right. And then are we trusting Devonta Smith?
No, never have, never will.
Never will.
This season, maybe never will.
That's a good point. That's probably overkill. But for the purposes of this season, no, you can't trust it because you'd have to trust that Jalen Hurts was going to consistently get the ball to one specific person, and that's not.
And he does. And his name is Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, I was going to say he does, but it's Dallas Goedert. Or himself is the other one I would have accepted there.
That's the biggest problem with that one. If for me, maybe next year, maybe long term, it turns around. But yeah, no, can't trust it this season. And again, if you're in the second round of the playoffs and you've been playing Devonta Smith to this point, wow, congratulations. Like the rest of your team is amazing.
You might not have a better option. It's theoretically possible you could flex him, but you're asking me if I trusted it.
Bills Patriots, Emmanuel Sanders logged to practice, should theoretically be back. Gabriel Davis had a monster game with him out, but good news, karma finally caught up with Cole Beasley. So now Gabe Davis should still be a starter. And where are you ranking Gabe Davis this week? He was wide receiver 4 last week. He has been a wide receiver 3 or better in 3 consecutive games, 4 of his last 6, 5 of his last 8. He's been wide receiver 23 since week 10.
The thing about that is he really should have been starting all year. The Bills did themselves a disservice by starting Cole Beasley. What they should have done, put Emmanuel Sanders in the slot, put Gabriel Davis on the outside opposite Stephon Diggs. That is how they should have won. However, they catered. They took a shot on Cole Beasley, and it didn't pan out. Now, Gabriel Davis is at minimum a top 20 wide receiver. I would say the way they've treated Stephon Diggs is not that great. Gabriel
he's
Davis,
a great wide receiver, but not in fantasy.
Yes.
This season.
Yes. Sorry. I don't want to.
Don't need that slander. We don't need Aiden sliding into your DM.
You don't need that sound
yes,
either.
I don't need the clip chimps out there clipping me saying Stephon Diggs isn't good. I'm talking about the role. But Gabriel Davis, most importantly, has taken over for Dawson Knox in the touchdown department.
Yeah.
And that is the key.
Well, I mean, to me, it's still, of the Bills receiving core, I would still start Diggs number 1 and then Davis 2.
You have to.
Like I'd play him over Sanders if that was your other option. I would play him over Knox if you were talking about a flex. I think he's the guy
Knox
with the higher
is not
ceiling.
startable if Gabriel Davis is starting.
To me, I think Davis kind of slots into where Cole Beasley has been the last few years. Is he's in that mid-20s range for wide receiver at this point. High-end wide receiver 3.
With even more upside.
Right.
Which, depending on your lineup, that factors in because Cole Beasley was always the reliable option.
Right.
Davis, he's a ceiling option. We just saw it.
And with Cole Beasley, too, it was all about PPR because it was just he gets the receptions and he gets a small amount of yards, but never really the touchdowns. So it was just volume that made him so valuable. And in half PPR and in no point, then he didn't really have much value. Whereas Gabe Davis, I feel like across all formats is probably in that same range. Let's see. Kendrick Bourne's on the COVID list.
Any chance that Zach Moss is just like completely inactive the rest of the year?
Probably.
There's a great.
I'll tell you this: if they don't activate him for this game to try and establish the run, and they let Matt Breida trot back out there after doing nothing for weeks, yeah, he's not getting activated again the rest of the year. You'll
I just
know.
wanted to throw
You'll
that out
know
there,
this
so
week.
you can probably drop Zach Moss.
Oh, that's better thing.
that's-
You could have
yeah,
done
you
that
could've
2
done that a
weeks
long
ago,
time.
man. That's 2 weeks ago.
And people will ask. I'm just letting them know.
Yeah.
That's another option. You completely just drop off your bench.
On the Patriots side, Kendrick Bourne's on the COVID list. He was pretty reliable for a while there until that winter storm game kind of destroyed everybody on the Patriots side.
He's an interesting one for next year.
Damian Harris still working on that hamstring injury, trying to come back. If he comes back, do you trust him?
Yeah, because Ramondre Stevenson. Wah, wah.
We can move on. He just did it. There it is. That's it.
If
Move
only
on.
someone had been telling you that Damian Harris is more talented than Ramondre Stevenson. If only there were multiple people on a staff of this wonderful website telling you that Damian Harris is better than Ramondre Stevenson. And that's why you should check out patreon.com/important.
He's got it. He's got it.
You have this content all year. You might as well take advantage of it.
Ravens, Bengals. We already talked about the Ravens a little bit with Lamar and Huntley's a must play. Bengals, Joe Mixon left early with an ankle injury, but he was back at practice already today. So the fact he didn't even take Wednesday off kind of shows you he should be good to go for this week.
Well, and the most important thing is he was in for the kneel down snaps at the end of the game. He's playing. They don't put a guy with an injury out for the kneel down snaps.
No, but I wish they'd put in a backup quarterback.
I mean, the Packers do. And then the backup quarterback tweets out pictures of his grass-stained knee.
Hey, don't make fun of Kirk Baker.
Chargers,
okay, I get a check.
Chargers, Texans. Austin Eckler's on the COVID list. He's not officially ruled out because with the new testing protocols, he could still play. But if he doesn't, Justin Jackson got to be top 15. Right?
Neil, I'm going to do my absolute best to find a goat to sacrifice this week in the name.
All right, help me out with that.
Because I need him
They're in
too.
short supply.
I need him very badly. So I am
Sacrifice your goats. Get Austin Eckler healthy and off the list.
All right, sacrifice your goats. New T-shirt. I'll put that down on here. Sacrifice your goats. All right.
We got all kinds of dudes. We got a new name last week from Edwin. It's perfect. It's all coming together.
Sacrifice your goats. All right, perfect. Plenty of off-season projects for me to work on. On the Texans side, Brandon Cooks also added to the COVID list after back-to-back top 15 performances. That means the one and only Texan anybody should care about is now on the COVID list. And if he's out, that number drops down to 0.
Are you telling me?
Oh, poor Rex Burkhead.
What about
you heard
Rex
what I
Burkhead?
said?
Oh, poor Rex.
You heard what I said.
He's so mean to Rex Burkhead right now. For no life has already been so mean to him. He doesn't need you like piling on.
Well, it really depends if Derwin James is out.
No, it
doesn't. No, it doesn't.
Because of Nico.
No, it doesn't.
That's the only reason. Nico is a deep threat. If Derwin James is out, I could see him getting a long ball.
Jordan, this is how this show used to work on Fridays when it was the 4 of us. This is literally how this show would proceed.
Does not matter.
It would take forever, and we would just all pile on Jason.
I want to
That's
say
why we don't do this
Jason's,
show.
Jason's like reined it in when he worked with us. Like, obviously, like there's the one outlandish thing he'll say, but like he's bringing Fast and Furious now. Like,
No, it's because he's back in his environment with Steve and I, trying
you know what? I'll put in
to
a caveat.
antagonize us.
You know what?
I'm
I'll change
pushing the
my mind.
buttons. That's my job.
I'll give you one. If Brandon Cooks doesn't play, there is still a chance that a Texan would matter this Sunday, and it's if we get a news alert that Deshaun Watson is playing.
There you go.
Then I will give you one Texan matters this weekend.
Davis Mill. Oh.
I agree. I agree with you, Steve. There is. I was just
Nothing.
being facetious
There's
about Rex
nothing.
Burkhead. There's no Texan that you'd actually want to start or feel good about. Like,
Nope, and
if-
probably not in 2022 because Davis Mills is probably the starting quarterback. So, moving on from the Houston Texans because Steve was right to give up on them.
100%. Always right.
What is Neil doing here?
Bucks Panthers.
What am I doing? I'm laughing at the fact that Steve
But-
left his fandom like an unwanted child at the fire station.
Yep.
Like that's literally what happened.
100%.
Like it
100%.
tickles me.
The Bucks are banged up. You've got Mike Evans dealing with a hamstring injury, listed as week to week. Fournette is on IR, done for the regular season, but should be back in the playoffs. Chris Godwin Remember when they kept saying he dodged a bullet, not going to be serious, and then 2 days later, oh yeah, he tore his ACL. His season's done.
Let me just say something, because like everything I saw, like I remember that when they're like, yeah, he dodged a bullet, but I kept saying ACL injury. I've never actually saw them say tear, unless I'm reading the wrong news reports.
Yes, he tore his ACL.
Is that actually official? Because I didn't know that. I just saw ACL injury. ACL never.
Yeah, it was MCL sprain is what they thought it was, and that he dodged a bullet, and then they did the MRI and went in and he tore his ACL.
Okay.
He's out for the year.
Just want to make sure.
And then Brashad Perriman is still on the COVID list. So it's Antonio Brown and no one else.
What about
It's Antonio Brown and my guy, Jalen Darden. Jalen Darden, the pride of the University of North Texas, just running routes out there with putting his hand up for old Tom. Do we care about anybody other than AB?
Yeah, I think Gronk you can rely on. I know he
played. Get over or under 30 targets
in the next 3 weeks.
I think it's close.
That would be close. He had
11 this Sunday. It's just specifically this game against the Panthers. How many times does he check down to Gronk?
He was so bad in that Saints game. I don't know if some of it was him, some of it was just Brady just forcing it to him, counting as a target. But he did get targeted 11 times. So Brady still looks his way, and especially now with all these guys out, he's definitely going to be looked upon.
Yeah. Also, keep in mind that Tom Brady is a very vengeful person, and they just got shut out for the first time. And when was the last time he got shut out? Like 15 years ago or something?
By Nick Saban.
Yeah. So there you go. So he is not going to be pleased, and he is just going to go out there and destroy this poor innocent Panthers team. That's going to rotate QBs.
They deserve it.
They're going to do it to themselves.
Under 80 points for the Bucks.
Yeah, pretty much. I started my thought about DJ Moore because I saw the alert and then I never actually finished it. But he's a game time decision officially, so just keep that in mind. But Robbie Anderson had one good game, Neil. So.
Totally vindicated. Totally vindicated.
The whole season was worth it.
All is forgiven. Completely
Speaking of being vindicated, Terrace Marshall, is he a thing again?
No.
Next year?
Next year.
Maybe.
That was towards Jack. I just wanted to be
next year.
Jack, stop listening to us. He's
Terrace Marshall is going to be on so many of my teams in the 18th round of our best ball drafts. Just
yes, he is
back there doing nothing.
I would like to talk more about Matt Rule's grifter status, but we do not have time. It's a different show. It's going to take at least an hour.
No, that's part of my whole college football coach rant.
We'll put that on the Patreon.
We'll do that. We'll do that later. That's a fun show.
Well, that's the thing. Patreon.com is bringing you streamable content soon enough. So
that's right.
To get all of the content you love, you must check out patreon.com/importantnonsense.
I'm just going to take that clip and then just put it on a soundboard so I can just play it all the time. That way I don't have to say it. Bears Seahawks in the afternoon, because what did we all want? More Bears in prime spots. That's what we need. More standalone Bears games.
More Matt Nagy looking frustrated on the sideline.
We've already talked about Justin Fields dealing with the ankle injury, so we'll move on from that. It's just worth noting that Andy Dalton is still on the COVID list, and so is Allen Robinson.
So does that mean we get Nick Foles finally?
Potentially. Potentially.
Finally. Like, you're looking forward to it? Like,
can it be worse?
Here's the sick part of me, Jordan.
Significantly.
This is the deep sick part of me that wants to see
so good with Nick
them take some time. That's be cautious. That's sit out Justin Fields. They start Nick Foles. Allen Robinson comes back, 10 catches for 200 yards.
That's right.
And then they sit Nick Foles, and then it goes right back to him doing nothing in the last two games.
Jordan, take it from a guy who's been watching the Bears his entire life and is about to be 35. Okay, it can always be worse at quarterback for the Bears. That is not a question you want to ask, because they'll find a way to do it.
It's not possible. It's probable.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
And also, if Nick Foles is starting that game, there's not enough bleach that I could pour into my eyes to ever be able to look at anything the same way again after I watched it. So there you go.
On the Seahawks side of it, do we have any faith in any of the Seahawks? I found it fascinating when they showed the next gen stats, doing the head-to-head comparison of Cooper Kupp and how he had all of his routes mapped out all over the field, being used different ways, just finding different creative ways to get him the ball. And then DK Metcalf and all of his routes are just run down the field and put your hand up. All right, now run an in route and put your hand up. And they just do literally nothing with him, and that's why he's never getting the ball. So is there anyone that we care about on the Seahawks?
I
mean, Rashad
Gerald
Penny,
Everett.
we talked about.
Gerald.
Yeah, Gerald Everett has
Will
actually
Dissly.
been like the most
You know what,
reliable.
Jason? For all the
Seahawk.
throw-ins you've had tonight, that's the one that I'll stop for a moment because I like it. That's as if I was totally desperate at tight end and just ruined. Sure, Gerald Everett. Every chance he falls into the end zone for you. They seem to be looking for it.
Well, he's in the grab bag of if he falls in the end zone, and he's getting enough work now.
Well, when did Wilson come back from injury? What week was that?
It was week 10 against the Packers.
All right, let's pull it up.
You want to pull up the numbers? I got
want
it
to
right
see
here
what
too.
Everett's done here. Since week 10, Everett is tied in 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a streamer. He's made it to
Well,
streamer class.
31.2 points.
Well, he'd be low end tight end startable.
He's
at that
tight
point.
end
12.
14.
Yeah.
Well, 13 points per game.
There you go. So he's a streamer.
Yeah.
He's right there. He's a top end of streaming.
So there you go.
And PPR is actually tied in 10. So
Yeah,
it's like-
for overall points, but he's played more games than a bunch of these guys.
The
And
question
points
is-
per game is tight end
That's right.
13.
The question is just weird because if you've been riding DK Metcalf, do you really have necessarily better options? Maybe, maybe not. Like it's theoretically
At this point,
possible.
yes.
I suppose.
I
But,
think
well,
the
yeah,
last 4 weeks he's been better though. I could
It's
look at that real quick.
theoretically possible. And then it's like Tyler Lockett. I never want to count on Tyler Lockett anyway as a general rule for fantasy. But again, what are your other options? So it's like do I have faith in it? Not necessarily. I just question what your replacements would be.
Right.
And then has Rashad Penny reverted back into a pumpkin? I mean, he was still a pumpkin the 1 week he had a good game. That's literally
Because
how
you
the story
didn't start him.
well, that's how, exactly, but that's how the story of Cinderella works. It reverts. It was a pumpkin and it became a carriage, but it was still a pumpkin, even though it was a carriage very
Yeah.
temporarily. Like
The,
it was still,
the
it was never not a pumpkin.
the thing with Cinderella, it's not about what's on the outside. It's about what's on the inside. And
no,
on
it's how
the
you make the
inside-
outside look first to sell it. And then you see that it's pretty on the inside. You're like, oh, I'll stick with that.
I'd love. Actually, you know what? We're doing the wrong show. I want Jack breaking down Disney movies and about their inner.
Oh, my
That's
friend.
With
coming
the
to the
glass.
Patreon
My
this
friend,
summer.
That's the
Patreon.com
show
slash
that we
important
need to be doing.
nonsense.
We're doing the wrong
If
show.
You
We've
want
been doing
to
the wrong
play
show the
some
whole time.
Disney
I will say
trivia.
this. Last week I talked about the fact that I had Amir Abdullah and Rashad Penny as my top pickups the week before, and I chose wrong. And it was basically because I didn't care because I was like, who's going to give me the 6? One of them, so I don't care which one I get. And that was the week he went off for a 27. But he put up a 7 3 weeks ago, the 27, and then a 6. I mean, he's giving you that solid floor. It's just, does he end up in the end zone and make it a great game for you? If you're looking for the upside and a solid floor, like solid flex option, especially against the Bears.
Are we worried about Alex Collins though? If he comes back from just
I referenced
eating
that
and eating.
before. He might
Yeah.
get 7 carries, which would move the needle slightly. But it's like, are you really worried about it? No. Do I temper expectations slightly? Sure, but I can't be more clear on the word slightly.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
that sentence.
I would have to look. I'm almost positive.
While Steve is looking, let's start talking about the Broncos real quick because I'm just going to talk about the Broncos here
Right.
for a moment. We do that anyway. That's a valid
Yeah,
point, but we're going to
that-
do it anyway.
That game against Houston from 2 weeks ago, when Rashad Penny put up that 27 and had the monster game, Alex Collins played 40% of the snaps and had 7 carries.
There you go, 7 carries. I was going to say that's the Alex Collins day.
So it didn't
Carries.
matter. The
7 carries.
production was the same. It was the Texans defense. So Rashad Penny broke a couple for touchdowns.
And before we let Neil talk about the Broncos, I would like to add Javonte Williams without Melvin Gordon. It's a projection. We're not drafting him there, might be 102 worthy.
Oh, you're gonna go. Okay.
In
I
that
was like, wait, why?
conversation.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't know if
We're-
I go
we're-
that high, but
Yeah, I don't know if it's that
No.
high.
I
but
won't
certainly
draft
in the
him there.
discussion.
But the value, Javonte Williams, if he's a back end first round running back, exceeds value. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
Javonte Williams might fall into that weird DeAndre Swift slot from this year,
And he
where it's
should
just exactly. Well, neither
He-
should DeAndre Swift. That was the whole point. It was an
Yeah.
incredible value.
You also
Javonte-
have to hope that the Broncos don't sign like a Sony Michel or something.
I hate to
and
tell you,
just-
man, but they're not going to have the money to do that.
Oh, then there you go. Then never mind.
They're going to probably stick with Mike Boone again, because they really like Mike Boone from all reports, and Melvin Gordon's the one who's not going to be there, and they're probably going to have Boone as the backup, and maybe they'll have a third guy, but that's going to be somebody who's going to be willing to play for either the veteran minimum or is going to be a rookie. That's how
Alright,
that's going to work.
fair enough. Then I am wheels up on Javonte Williams.
They are out of money already after re-signing their wide receivers, and they are going to spend whatever money is necessary to get a free agent quarterback.
Yeah.
So their sacrifices will be made in this offseason, and I think that's one of them.
I'm
Having
still-
RB depth is not going to be a priority for
I'm
them.
still
like it
so
used to be.
upset that Cortland Sutton signed with them, and now he's doing absolutely nothing.
That's a conversation for a different podcast.
Yes, it
I have
is.
Too much time. That's too much time.
Right.
But
Well,
for the pur-
that's the question for now. Is Teddy Bridgewater took that scary hit? He's ruled out. I'm not sure he comes back this season. We'll see what happens. But for at least this week, it's Drew Lock. Does Drew Lock being under center change the value of any of these pass catchers? Like the running backs don't change at all. But
The tight
does
end.
it? You think it makes Fant or Albert O more interesting?
That's the only thing that he really seems to go to. I mean, I thought it would be Sutton, but even last
well,
week.
Sutton's
really-
also dealing with an injury. It's a different injury than the one that he's been dealing with all season. So Sutton's on the injury report this
Mhm.
week with a different malady than what's been plaguing him. So that's not going to help. The only one that I think it might matter a little bit is Tim Patrick. But when I say a little bit, I mean like 2%. Because Tim Patrick is Tim Patrick.
Yeah.
You're playing him. He's touchdown dependent wide receiver 3. Sorry, wide receiver like 4 or 5. That's more in that area. I am curious. What? Look, the Broncos love Alberto. Clearly, like they cannot telegraph that more to you. Are you going to recommend? Like I can get maybe my head around the idea of not wanting to play Noah Fant in a playoff game, given the roller coaster that is Noah Fant. Are you going to recommend playing Albert O with Drew Lock under center in a playoff game?
No.
Is
No,
that what
no,
we're
no,
doing
no.
here?
I am recommending that we sell Noah Fant in all dynasty leagues, and we invest heavily in Albert Akui-Boonham going forward.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
if you look at last week, Albert Akui-Boonham was better than Noah Fant, more efficient, had more yards.
You
Can't
can
play
say the same thing about Tim
anyone.
Patrick and any Broncos wide receiver.
We would have had this conversation much earlier, Jack, had Alberto not been hurt.
Yeah,
That we would have had this
Absolutely.
conversation 6 weeks ago, because the
Yeah,
Broncos were telegraphing it to you in training camp that they're not satisfied with what Noah Fant is doing for them right now. I would argue that they're not using him correctly, but that's a different conversation. What they
Yeah.
do seem very interested in is Alberto, an individual that does not cost them anything to roster. Hardly, it's like pennies to keep him around, and they love him. They raved about him last year. They raved about him through training camp again. And then if he didn't get hurt, he was already carving out a nice little job for himself.
Well, and just think, Albert Akui-Boonham is a much, much better athlete than Robert Tonyan. So when Aaron Rodgers comes to town, Albert Akui-Boonham in 2022. But I'll stop taking up our time. Let's move on.
The Raiders. So really the only thing to note there, you've got Darren Waller still dealing with his injury, still has not practiced. It goes into the grab bag, but if Waller is out again, Foster Moreau still probably somebody just to know, potential streamer if you're desperate at tight end. And then Hunter Renfrow, who's been a PPR monster all season. He had a bad game. Is this anything more than just one bad game, or is it something to be concerned about?
He's
I mean, I'm
genuinely
concerned.
hurt. Like I'm
Yeah.
concerned for this season because he's genuinely hurt. Like he kind of needs to go away and get healthy and come back right next year because he was working on something special, in my opinion. The quarterback thing is going to be interesting to navigate, but that's a conversation for next year.
Yeah, I think at this point you're going to probably just roll out Moreau and Jones and hope for the best because Renfro doesn't look right. And with him out, those are the two that are going to see the targets. So I like Moreau more this week because it's the Broncos, but I think that they can handle Zay Jones pretty easily.
All right. Steelers, Chiefs, Pat Freiermuth, and I put the note on here just for you, Jason, aka the tight end 6 since week 6 with 11.8 points per game.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, he's coming off a concussion, not practicing, so just something to monitor if you've been playing Freiermuth to this point. We've already mentioned a few, potential backups that could fill in if you need be. The Chiefs have pretty much everybody you would care about other than Patrick Mahomes on the COVID list. Both Kelsey and Hill are both on the list, potentially out. If they don't play, is there anybody that steps up that would matter?
I'm okay playing Noah Gray because of the matchup.
In the fantasy football playoffs.
You betcha. Because you know what? There's no Hill. I'm not trusting Hardman. I'm not trusting Robinson. No, I am going to go with the tight end that's going to be there.
You're not even going to acknowledge that Byron Pringle exists.
No.
Oh, well,
Not
Josh
even gonna
Gordon.
acknowledge it.
Josh Gordon.
Oh,
Right.
stop this nonsense.
So you are so confident in Noah Gray, but
I would
none
rather go
of the receivers that have
I'm
played
sorry. You refer to what we're saying as nonsense.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll be honest with you, Jason. I would rather trust on Thursday Night Football Jeff Swain than Noah Gray.
Nope. If both the tight ends are out, it's going to be Noah Gray. It's just how it's going to work.
No is not
no.
a counter argument.
That's my point. Neither of them matter. This is a
Yeah.
garbage conversation that helps no one.
It's like arguing with Donald Trump.
Well, I would say if it,
You make an argument, and he just goes, no. And then,
Well,
that's the end of it. Like,
I would
First
say
time the
if you were
Important Nonsense
desperate,
podcast has ever been political.
I would say if you were desperate and it was a situation that you were in and those guys weren't playing, I think it makes Darrell Williams slightly more interesting because
I'll
he's
give
a
you
pass
that.
catching
Yeah.
back
I'll give you that.
and he's going to be more of a reliable check down option. But
Better
again,
than-
you have to understand that it comes with the risk of him putting up a 1 like he did last week. So just
It's
know that
still
going in.
better than starting Noah Gray.
you can just see now
GD
Noah
semis.
Gray is going to get 2 touchdowns, and
Mhm.
Jason's going to gloat to the rest of the season.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
no,
keep that in mind.
much longer than that. You
Much
think
longer
that'll
than
end
that. Into the
there?
summer.
Right.
If he cashes that, we'll hear about that into 2025.
Forever.
We'll hear.
Kelsey loves Noah Gray. I'm just
And
letting
put it on
you
his
know that.
put it on his gravestone like that.
It's
I feel
also
like
worth
that's just-
noting that Harrison Butker is ruled out of this game already on the COVID list. Elliott Fry will serve as the backup, and they have had at least 2 field goal attempts every game, 8 consecutive weeks. So
I feel bad for the people. I actually do feel bad if you have Butker and you have to scrounge for a
yes,
waiver
if
wire
you're looking for a
kicker.
streaming kicker.
Yeah.
And that's the tricky part too, is I never want to carry 2 kickers.
Yeah.
So if you're in a situation where you're in the, second round of the playoffs trying to make it to the championship, Butker will be back and you'd love to have him for your championship game. So you don't really want to cut him. Do you have to carry 2 kickers? Ugh,
Not ideal.
God. Yeah. All right, football team versus Cowboys. The powerful football team that Jordan loves to say so much. Doesn't throw his brain off at all. JD McKissick lands on IR. His season is done. Antonio Gibson dealing with a toe injury that Ron Rivera called, quote, similar to what he dealt with last season, end quote. Are you nervous about Antonio Gibson this week / the rest of the way? Playing.
I mean, haven't we? You've started him with an injury this entire season. Like it was the broken shin, and now it's the toe.
He's just held together by duct tape at this point, but it's
Yeah.
working. So
Yeah, he's putting up pretty good games.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a RB11, right? That's what he is.
Yeah.
Somehow, I still don't know how the dude does it. The fact that he is still alive for the team is very odd to me. They are trying to kill the man.
Coming off the short week, they still have no quarterback. So are we scared about Scary Terry?
Terrifying.
Oh my God, what a
Have to be,
what a
right?
sad fall from grace. It's not his fault, but
Mhm.
we were always saying he's quarterback proof, and now that's becoming false.
Boy, did
That's
they
the
prove us
thing.
wrong.
Well, I was going to say they had to raise the bar on what quarterback
Yeah.
meant. That's literally what they had to do that.
And you look at the advanced metrics, and Terry McLaurin, he is the league leader in contested catches. And it's not because he's not getting open. It's because the quarterback is throwing it to him in terrible position.
He's wide open, and the QB throws it to two defenders, and
that's
he
why
has
I
to go
have
steal
beef
it
with.
from him.
That's why I have beef with Taylor Heineke, because he's the reason why Terry McLaurin got that concussion. It's directly Heineke's fault. He had no business throwing that football that caused Terry McLaurin to get injured. He should have thrown it out of bounds, or even taken a sack would have been preferable to what he did. He threw it into obvious double coverage, hoping Terry McLaurin could make a play, which I get why you would attempt that. But in that situation, he literally got him killed. He led him into the defender who just blasted him. You cannot deal with your wide receivers that way, Taylor, if you're listening. Like,
Yeah, he's a big fan.
Going first.
yeah, I'm sure he is. Not anymore. He's out of the fan club.
He's too busy listening to Joe Rogan.
I'm sure he is. His Taylor Heineke's Patreon costs double for us if he wants to be a patron. He's got to pay twice. That's how that works.
That's respectful.
For the entire year. You can't just have the 1 month,
Jordan, your note is just Zeke versus Pollard. You want to
it's kind of the same thing with the Edmonds Connor
Well,
dilemma.
Okay.
Go
while
ahead.
Jordan gets into this too, I'd just like to add the three wide receivers to this conversation. It's the same argument. Who do you pick?
Well,
Jordan, go ahead.
Well, the thing is, even with Pollard with his torn plantar fasciitis, was more effective than Zeke. Obviously, Zeke got more carries, got in the end zone.
Right.
But Pollard still looked pretty good and was put up a decent score. That's the thing. Like, do we trust Pollard to play him? If you have Zeke,
Yes.
I figure you have to play him.
So
he's finding the end zone. So Zeke's fine.
Yeah, and
in
like
PPR scoring, which is of course God's scoring, what we care about here. Since week 10, every week that he has started and played, Tony Pollard has been an RB2. So yes, if he's in the lineup, you are playing Tony Pollard. He is at the very worst, he is a flex consideration for you. Zeke
Unless you're in that 16 league that
Yes.
has all
Unless
these
you're in that
options.
16 league. Zeke is Zeke. You have to play him. If he's gotten you to this point, then it is what it is. You just hope he lands in the end zone like he did last week. I think the wide receiver discussion is a more interesting one because, yes, you do have the possibility of, like we talked about, without getting in the end zone, the same problem with Dak. With these guys, they just don't have the yardage ceiling because they all kind of cannibalize each other. Like CeeDee Lamb has been okay. He's been kind of the most productive of all of them. But like at this point, Amari Cooper is pretty much benchable. I mean, he hasn't been inside the top 30 more than once since week 8. He hasn't been inside the top 20 at all.
I think Gallup kind of ruined Cooper for me. That's at that point when Gallup came back, I was done with Cooper. I figured he was on the bench or on the waivers at that point.
Yeah, all of these guys over the last 3 weeks have finished outside of the top 20. They're all just eating into each other. One of them finishes like high-end 20s, a back-end wide receiver 2, and the others finish outside of startable territory. And we just don't know who it's going to be on a weekly basis. And the Cowboys don't care because with the 3 of them balanced, it's making defenses confused and they're winning football games, which is all they care about. It's hurting us, but they don't care.
And then every once in a while, Dalton Schultz gets a 20 just to throw gasoline on everything.
And that was the thing with last year. Our argument for, well, you can draft multiple Cowboys because there are multiple good Cowboys was because even with Andy Dalton, there were 6 weeks in a row, I believe, with a wide receiver 1 from the Cowboys. And it alternated between Cooper and Gallup and CeeDee Lamb. But now, none of them are wide receiver 1s.
And you know why that happened? Because they actually have a defense that's playing very well.
Well, was playing
true.
I mean, that's now they're playing well enough that they don't have to throw it to.
Right.
I mean,
I'll get to that.
They're not. They don't have to be in shootouts like they were last season.
Yeah,
which is a lot of our analysis from the preseason, by the way. Was that their defense was going to be atrocious and they'd just be in shootout after shootout again. It hasn't really worked out that way.
Somehow, and nothing's changed. I just don't understand how this defense has gotten so much better this year from last year.
The rookies.
They're the rookies.
It's 100% the rookies. Like they've made a massive difference.
I think that's a better conversation for the offseason, which we're fast approaching. But we've got to get through Monday
Micah
night
Parsons,
before we get
rookie
there.
of the year for me. Has to be.
He might be defensive player of the year.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Not
in the
just
conversation.
defensive rookie.
But I think he's defensive rookie of the year for sure.
Oh,
all right, we finally made it to Monday night. It took us long enough. In the longest podcast in the history of this website, we've done it.
It's
Well,
possible.
You're
It's very possible,
Steve.
actually.
We play. It's the longest non-planned.
Look, and
podcast.
let's look at it this way, okay? This is the Wednesday show and the Thursday show combined, or the
Oh!
Friday show combined. So really, it's just the two back to back.
and it's gonna get
Oh, hey,
longer.
Soren
And it's going to
Eagle,
get
there we
longer.
go.
Oh, somebody is stuck with us for an hour and 45 minutes.
Soren
You.
Eagle coming in
No,
You
hot.
are the
Let's
real
go.
MVP.
Soren Eagle's just now checking in.
Oh,
He's
good.
like, oh, hey,
Good.
they're live. I'll ask a question.
Okay, good. No, that's
Because
good. That's
he was
smart.
with us in hour one, he would know that we already talked about Brandon Cooks, but that's fine. We can answer the question anyway. Do you think Brandon Cooks plays or not? If he plays, obviously you are playing him.
Yes.
It's very questionable. With the new COVID protocols that they have, he has a much better chance than he would have last week to be able to play in this game.
And the
But-
thing is, if he's cleared, even 10 minutes before game time, Brandon Cooks over Tyler Lockett and T. Higgins, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I barely say have garbage time.
If he's out, though, T. Higgins or Tyler Lockett, that's the question.
T. Higgins for me, but I'm confirming that. Yes, T.
Yeah,
Higgins. for
T.
me.
Higgins for me, for sure.
Yeah, it's close, but I would give a slight edge to T. Higgins.
Yeah.
Rocket versus Chicago.
You look at the Baltimore Ravens, and Devontae Adams still scored a touchdown, even though he was facing triple coverage at times.
Yeah.
That
And again, like he had one bad game against Denver, but Denver has a great secondary.
Yep.
And other than that, the previous 3 weeks, he was wide receiver 2, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 22 in full PPR scoring. And the last time they played Baltimore in week 7, T. Higgins had 15 targets.
Yeah.
And caught 7 of them for 62 yards.
Well,
So
would you play Higgins over Waddle though? Sorry, I just saw the little note at the end.
yeah, because that's the next question, right? I would have Higgins ranked ahead of Waddle. Waddle would be the 2 in that scenario. I would still play Waddle over Lockett, but
That's funny because I have it it's very close
Yeah,
actually. with
those
three.
are very close to my rankings as well. That's why I
But
figured.
I'm gonna go Higgins, Waddle, Lockett.
Mhm.
In that
we're
order.
splitting hairs at this point, but I will dissent. I will go for the Penguin Jalen Waddle over T. Higgins.
That's fine. I'm not gonna argue with you about that. To me,
Yeah.
that's like
There's
not even
still
worth
the
arguing about.
one, the 2.
yeah.
I am not a crook. That's for Jordan.
Well,
I think-
isn't Waddle going? I'm assuming that Waddle gets Lattimore. That's the only thing that I have an issue with.
Mhm.
So
I don't know
well,
that it
this
matters.
goes to what we're talking about here with the Monday game.
Yeah,
Since
this is
we're about
setting
to
you
get
up
into it
perfectly.
anyway.
I know we're going right into it.
So in the ECR, Waddle right now is wide receiver 16. The question is, do you consider Waddle or Parker flex worthy? Where do you rank those guys? Devontae Parker right now is wide receiver 28 in the ECR. They have only had 3 games this season when they've played 100% together. And in those games, on average, Jalen Waddle has had 10.4 PPR fantasy points. Devontae Parker, 15.1. Part of that is because he's the only one that's ended up in the end zone. But realistically, week 13 is the most recent case when they were playing together. You had 11 targets for Waddle. He caught 9 for 90. Devontae Parker had 5 targets, caught all of them for 62 yards. Devontae Parker has played limited time this year because he's been dealing with injuries, but he has not had less than 4 catches or 42 yards all season long. So an 8.2 is the floor that Devontae Parker has given you all season. So with him playing in the lineup, you have to start him. With Jalen Waddle, he's finished inside the top 26 of his last 8 games. Granted, a majority of that has been with Parker out, but still, I mean, I would start both of them and feel pretty comfortable about it.
are we assuming that Tua is going to throw it a bunch in this game? I mean, I'm trying to figure out this game so much because of how well the Saints did against Brady.
I don't think
my mind is melting a little bit on this.
The problem is that the Saints' rush defense is so good that they're not going to have a choice.
That's where I'm going.
Even
here.
if they want to run the ball a ton, whether it is Duke Johnson, who seemingly took over the job this past week, my boy
or he
Duke.
splits it with Myles Gaskin. Now that Gaskin is finally going to get practice reps and come back ostensibly healthy. I don't know that it matters.
And again, to put a bow on that as well, you had Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed already. They're getting Malcolm Brown back, who's now working out, coming off of IR. You just reactivated Phillip Lindsay, who they claimed off of waivers from the COVID list. And now you've signed Duke Johnson from your practice squad to be an official player for the rest of the regular season. So they have a 5-headed monster at running back. The answer to running back in Miami is I don't trust a single one of them. I feel like they're going to rotate a couple of guys and see if any of them can make something happen. But nobody has made anything happen against the Saints defense all season. Like Tony Pollard broke a 50-plus yard touchdown for the Cowboys on that Monday night game. But other than that, like they're not giving up big plays. The Cowboys did nothing the rest of that game. They're shutting people down on the ground. And if you rush the ball on first and second down and get a grand total of 2 yards, you don't really have much of a choice but to throw the ball on third down.
Because we're getting a lot of questions, and I'm getting a lot of questions, especially in the background about Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson. Oh my God, where do you have Duke Johnson in your waiver wire pickups? What do you do about Duke Johnson? And I'm like, I don't think about Duke Johnson very much if you're going to need him for a playoff game, because you're going to count on that against in a hideous matchup.
He has no value in Dynasty. And if you're in this point, like more than likely, as much as I hate to say it, like Myles Gaskin, if you were playing Myles Gaskin, you're not in the second round of the playoffs. So it doesn't really matter.
I had to do that. Yeah. And I actually found my first gray hair in my beard and I named it Myles Gaskin.
Smart.
That's all I have to say.
And then we wrap it up with, can you play anyone on the Saints with how good the Dolphins defense has been?
Kamara.
You're going to have a choice about playing Kamara.
Well, also
anyone other than the obvious.
Yeah.
Like Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you've been Taysom Hill didn't do much for you last week, so you're probably not in the second round if you had to use Hill. But if you have to and your other quarterback isn't worth starting, then you have to play him. Like the rushing.
What quarterback isn't worth starting, though?
Jared Goff.
To be fair, you have a fan that agrees with you in terms of J-Max 12. No. Taysom Hill all the way. But
I actually wrote that. That was me.
No,
so
definitely not.
I don't know that I could go back to the well with Taysom Hill. I'll go around the horn on this. Taysom Hill, or let's assume Lamar sits. Taysom Hill or Tyler Huntley. Jack, go.
Tyler Huntley. That's not even a question.
Tyler Huntley, and it's not close. Yeah.
We kind of did. We kind of did, but the thing is, we're going to bookend the show here with it, because if we're directly talking about,
you mean somebody wasn't tuned in 2 hours ago for this conversation? Okay.
Thank you for participating in the show. I'm assuming that's our friend Joe McCarthy. I am so positive about anything in my life that's our friend Joe McCarthy.
I personally am a big fan of McCarthyism.
So positive that that's Joe McCarthy writing this to us right now. And if it is Joe, I'll talk to you in about 10 minutes about this. We'll have this conversation in the background.
And we'll let you know why Jordan McDonald is wrong.
I'm usually wrong. That's
fair.
Well, okay, so let's put it to
Huntley and it's not close. Give me
I think everybody agrees that it's Huntley and it's not close. So then what's the Mendoza line for Taysom Hill? Because Taysom Hill opens the ECR at quarterback 11. So what's the Mendoza line for it? Where would
You're not giving me other options. I don't know.
Oh, fair enough. What's your that's a good. Thank you for that. It's been 2 hours and my brain is becoming Swiss cheese. Taysom Hill or Joe Burrow?
Joe Burrow.
Yeah, Joe Burrow.
Taysom Hill or Kirk Cousins?
Taysom Hill.
Oh,
we got a splitter.
Oh. I love Cousins though.
I know you do.
He was so bad against the Bears though.
That's you going with your heart. I get that. It's fine.
I'm going with his numbers because he's so consistent.
Kirk Cousins has finished outside the top 15 against Pittsburgh and Chicago, and now he's playing the Rams. I'm not playing Kirk Cousins if I can.
Yeah, so he has to throw? Okay, I'm good with that.
He has to throw. He also has to get sacked.
Yeah. Aaron
Taysom Hill or
Donald's going
Dak?
to eat his lunch all day long.
He probably will. Taysom Hill or Dak?
That's the thing. Garrett
Dak.
Bradbury, the center, not that great. If they really wanted to, they could
Even
play
with what
Aaron
we
Donald
talked
at
about
nose
earlier, Dak.
tackle.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And then see, a lot of these just aren't compelling. Taysom Hill or Justin Fields.
Taysom Hill.
Hill.
Yeah, probably Taysom Hill.
So that's kind of where you're at. So you're basically saying it's like, yeah, everybody kind of is like you really are looking at Taysom Hill at around
Taysom Hill
11,
or Russ.
12 is kind of where you're at. Like,
unless Justin Fields gets a full practice in on Friday,
yeah,
then I may start him.
Well, this
I
is what
probably will.
this is what I'm
Taysom
saying. So
Hill or Russ against the Bears.
Hill.
Now
it's a
I'm-
legitimate question.
Now I'm
It's a
over-
legitimate
that's-
question.
Yeah.
I can't try.
It's
I
Taysom
still
Hill
think
for
It's
me.
Taysom
Yeah.
Hill.
it's the mallet finger that I just think has destroyed Russ, and they shouldn't have been playing it at all.
I will disagree with you because the real reason Russ sucks is surprise
Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
Jinx, you owe me.
Mr.
And
Mr.
their lack of
53
any
plays,
O-line
yeah.
that has plagued them for what, 5 years, that eventually was always going to bite them. Like, no matter what you did, it was eventually going to eat you. But no, I don't want to like completely crap on Taysom Hill because he had a bad game. And I'm not a Taysom Hill fan. I've been pretty open about this over the years. I don't enjoy watching him play. But as far as like fantasy purposes, he's in that 11, 12, 13 kind of neighborhood, no matter how you want to skin it. He's going to end up being there. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, you hold your nose and you don't watch the game and you hope that he gets 2 rushing touchdowns.
Well, what about the other side of the ball? Talking about quarterbacks, Tua
Okay,
or
now
Hill?
I'm positive. Now I'm positive I know who I'm talking to.
No. We have a real question though.
Younghoe Koo.
It's Younghoe Koo.
It's Younghoe Koo.
Really? He hasn't been good this
Jack,
year.
it's not a real question. I'm very familiar with
But
the
I think
individual.
that has to do with more the Atlanta offense than it does with Younghoe Koo.
Yeah. They stall out.
And it's against Detroit. So
Jack, the man who asked us that question has 7 Younghoe Koo jerseys, 1 for each to count up to 7. Okay, like I know that guy.
is one of them a Chargers jersey?
Sure.
Probably. I mean,
Sure.
odds would be, yeah.
A Texans jersey.
Yeah, I think anybody else in that neighborhood, probably not. Tua in the same game, I'm going Hill.
I'm
I'm going Hill. Like it's like
Yeah.
we have this tendency to come off very negative about Taysom Hill when in reality I want to provide context. Where
Derek
it's like, what are
Carr,
we
it
actually
would be
talking about?
Taysom
Yeah,
Hill for
Taysom
sure.
Hill. Like
Jimmy
That's-
Gorgeous. He gives you a higher floor, I guess.
I think
but-
Jason might be the only one willing to take a shot on.
But
Jimmy
is it an
Gorgeous.
advertisement?
Yeah, are we selling
If it was a
Oikos
commercial.
Greek yogurt? Yeah,
Are-
we're selling
Are
Greek
we,
yogurt.
are we selling fantasy football points or
Mhm.
are we selling sex? Because if we're selling sex, Jimmy G, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy Gorgeous is always the answer.
All right, that's fair.
Did he hit on? Was that Aaron Andrews? Who did he hit on? That was
No, he
interviewing
went,
after the game.
oh, I thought you were
No,
talking about
okay,
his
so
debate.
okay, I'm not. Do we have time to get into this? Like, I know what he's
No,
talking
we
about.
don't.
No,
No,
we haven't
it's
had
not.
time
We
for
keep
any of
going
this.
on these
And
tangents.
Jason
we
just
haven't had
dropped a
time for any of
We
this.
non-context
had this
bomb,
wrapped up. This was done and buried.
We were wrapping the show, and then suddenly
My
now we're
God.
back on.
I can't do it. I'm not allowing this show to end. We're having too much fun.
All right, well,
I am having fun. This has been enjoyable.
Jason,
Like,
are
this
we
has been
cutting
a lot
into
of
your
fun.
are we cutting into your video game time though? Like, I mean, if
Yes.
After
the amount of
this, I'm
times
gonna
that
go.
Jason's got mad at us for going over on Fridays because he wants to play video games.
Well, that's too bad.
That's a legitimate reason.
No, it's not.
It is now 10 p.m. I'm ready to go to bed.
All right, we're fan participation.
Thank
Aaron
you, Joe
Andrews.
Mac X12. It was Aaron Andrews. I appreciate the context.
Wonderful.
I thought that was
We
okay.
appreciate the clarification.
Thank you from the audience. That is correct. It was Aaron Andrews, and there's a hilarious GIF
My
that is
God.
too inappropriate for this show.
Way off the rails here.
So far off the rails. This has been my favorite show, though. I think this is the.
Is that
I-
really
I-
the
I
knowledge you
agree.
came
You're
here
welcome.
for?
Yep. All the random is what I'm here for.
What does this show become? All right.
I don't know.
I,
Tune in next-
genuinely wonder
Yeah,
that.
tune
and-
in next week.
Tune
And
in
according
next
to
week.
Jack,
Well,
for the
hold
100th
on.
time,
Hold on.
patreon.com.
Before we sign off, I would like to put it out to everyone in the audience.
Oh, geez.
Hit us up with your questions as we sign off, because even if we're signing off, we'll interrupt our goodbyes, our salutations, our see you next times to give you actionable fantasy football advice.
Sure.
What I was going to say is tune in next week for Jack's Disney Hot Takes, which is going to be the new show that replaces everything that we've been doing for the last 5 years. We're just going to do that.
I'm just telling you.
We're just producing that. That's what we're doing. Again,
We got to do something in the summer.
no one cares about fantasy football. Okay, we're going to do that show. It's much more.
You
popular.
do not
right.
want to play me in Disney Scene It, my
You
friend.
probably will. You destroy me, especially.
Ooh.
Steve might be able to
I
give you a
might
run for
have
your
you
money,
on
but
that, Jack.
All right.
Steve might be able to give you. I'll referee it.
I'm adding it
no
to
use to
the list. Jack Disney hot takes. There's our summer plans.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. I'm not kidding.
Wonderful.
We're producing
Does that include Marvel properties? Because I'll join you for those.
No, it's all Disney. Star Wars. Sure,
Oh,
come on
okay.
down. If it's owned by Disney.
Don't give him the satisfaction.
Kevin?
Oh, I
I'll
was just
speak
going to
to you
say
about-
this will be a question for next time.
Don't give him the satisfaction. All right.
This is just the best and worst
At
show we've ever done.
nonsense_Steve, at nonsense_Neil, at Javanaugh87, who's had way too many Bloody Marys already. At Donald McJordan down there on the bottom, at that FF Nerd. Thank you all for following along. Again, these guys won't be around on Friday, but send us those questions. Join us in the Discord. And yes, happy holidays to everybody.
Happy
out there.
holidays, everyone.
Hope you enjoy your time with your families. And until next week, everybody, just keep up the nonsense.
Music for this podcast is provided by Lee Rosevere. I'm Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at IMportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!